Good evening, everyone, and thank you for viewing and attending the May 17th meeting of the Arcata City Council. The City Council meeting is being held as a hybrid meeting with both in-person attendance and teleconference access via Zoom. Okay, our first item this evening. Okay. All right. Okay, our first item this evening is a land acknowledgement. The City of Arcata acknowledges that the lands we are located on are the unceded ancestral lands of the Wiyot tribe. The land that Arcata rests on is known in the Wiyot language as Gudini, meaning over in the woods or among the redwoods. Past actions by local, state, and federal governments have removed the Wiyot and other indigenous peoples from their land and threatened to destroy their cultural practices. The City of Arcata acknowledges the Wiyot community, their elders both past and present, as well as future generations. This acknowledgement seeks to aid in dismantling the legacy narratives of settler colonialism. If you would like to, please join us for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag Will the city clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Schaefer,
Here.
Vice Mayor Matthews,
Here.
Councilmember White,
Here.
Councilmember Stillman,
Present.
Councilmember Atkins Salazar is absent, but we have a quorum.
Okay. If you wish to make comment during the meeting, either at the two open public comment periods or for an individual agenda item, there are 3 ways to do so. If you are here in person, please line up behind the podium when the item you would like to speak on is accepting public comment. And for those wishing to speak in early oral communications, we have 4 cards here for in-person attendees, and then we'll go online. And if there's more time, we'll go back to in-person attendees. If you are logged onto Zoom, click raise your hand when it is time for public comment on the item you wish to speak on. Or if you're on the phone, press *9 on your phone to raise your hand. When it's your turn, you'll be prompted to dial *6 to unmute. For each item, we will take the in-person public comment first, then move to online comments. We will not be going back and forth, so if you want to comment, please line up at the podium or raise your electronic hand as soon as public comment is requested for that item. So our next item tonight is going to be our ceremonial matters, and so we have 3 proclamations this evening. So the first is a proclamation in honor of Kinetic Sculpture Racing, May 27th, 2023, and I will be reading that one. So whereas the art and sport of kinetic sculpture racing, difficult to truly comprehend but easy to enjoy, is a Humboldt tradition originating in Ferndale and spreading gloriously to other parts of planet Earth, and whereas the kinetic tradition has been part of Humboldt County life since 1969, with at least one kinetic race starting on the Arcata Plaza for the last 50 years, not counting those 2 years when we were thwarted by a global pandemic. And whereas the glorious founder of all kinetic sculpture racing, Hobart Brown, a Ferndale artist, envisioned a 3-day triathlon of the art world from Arcata through Eureka to Ferndale over land, sand, mud, and water, and coined many a phrase such as adults having fun so children will want to grow older, and if you're not living on the edge, you're taking up too much space. And whereas the Kinetic Grand Championship is a tribute to the rich history of kinetic racing in Humboldt County, Kinetic Universe, the Kinetic Grand Championship's nonprofit organizing body, works to promote the tradition and values of kinetic sculpture racing in Humboldt County. And whereas several other cities across the world have kinetic sculpture races inspired by Humboldt County's mother race, unusually held every Memorial Day weekend, recognizing that this art event involves the whole family and community while also promoting tourism, sustainability, bicycling, and silliness. The race enhances our community's image both nationally and internationally. And whereas kinetic sculpture racing encourages the recycling of junk and tidying up of our environment while exploring sustainable transportation as a creative solution to greenhouse gas emitting vehicles, thus fighting the global pandemic and climate change. And whereas whereas Kinetic Universe presents the Kinetic Grand Championship that will challenge creativity, provide opportunities for artists and artistic discovery, and lift community spirit and pride, resulting in the most glorious weekend of the year. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Arcata hereby congratulates Kinetic Universe on its glorious and dedicated stewardship of this uniquely Humboldtian tradition of kinetic sculpture racing. The Council encourages everyone to attend the kickoff of the 2023 Kinetic Grand Championship on Saturday, May 27th, 2023, on the Arcata Plaza at noon for the glory. and of course, a gloriously long proclamation just for kinetics. So is Jennifer here to accept this? Okay, I guess she is not. Or is she online? No, Jennifer is not here. All right, we will hold on to it and make sure it gets to the right person. And so our next proclamation is going to be a proclamation designated the month of May 2023 as Arcata Tourism Month, and this will be read by Vice Mayor Matthews.
All right, I am thrilled to read the city proclamation designating the month of May 2023 as Arcata Tourism Month. Whereas the Arcata Humboldt Welcome Center celebrates its 23rd anniversary this year and has served over 200,000 visitors over the phone, by mail, and in person, providing valuable local resources and recommendations about how to best experience the eclectic charm of Arcata's culture and commerce. And whereas the Welcome Center is looking to support the contemporary visitor by offering virtual information, visit arcata.com, and whereas visitors annually spend approximately $15 million on lodging in Arcata and another $12 million in the area during their visit, the Arcata Chamber of Commerce and the Arcata Humboldt Welcome Center are working in collaboration with other stakeholders to ensure that this level of activity not only continues, but increases. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the City Council of the City of Arcata that May 2023 is Arcata Tourism Month, dated May 17th, 2023. And Annalisa Rush, our interim executive director.
Yes, thank you so much. My name is Annalisa Rush, as Meredith mentioned, outgoing interim executive director of the Arcata Chamber of Commerce. And so it's a pleasure for us to accept this proclamation. Thank you. After about over 30 years of living here and growing up in Northern California, I still consider myself a tourist. And so during my time at the Arcata Chamber, it's been a pleasure for me to share my love of place with all of our visitors and newcomers to the area. May is humming with activity, right? We're launching into the tourism season as we're emerging from the pandemic, historic storms, disasters. Our community and our visitors are eager to gather together again to appreciate our beautiful environment and bring back traditional events such as July 4th Jubilee on the Plaza. Woo-hoo! And create new ones for visitors and residents. So I'm just going to read from the Humboldt County Visitors Bureau. In the Humboldt County Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, tourism was recognized as an essential part of the region's basic economic foundation, providing significant employment opportunities and importing significant revenue. It also serves as an important workforce training ground. Quality of life for residents equals quality of place for visitors. And the Arcata Chamber accomplishes this through our mission, which I'll read. We work as a catalyst to support business entrepreneurship, collaboration, and innovation while promoting a strong sense of community. So we celebrate our members. We build connections through our programming and our zero waste events, our ceremonies, to help create a vibrant community for our visitors. We strive to be respectful guests on and acknowledge traditional native lands in everything that we do. And we intentionally support diversity in our operations and through our partnerships. At our Welcome Center, we help residents and tourists orient themselves to parks, trails, events, activities, with lots of resources, materials, and quality recommendations. And our board members, ambassadors, some of which are here today, and our partners are active in creating meaningful initiatives for our community, such as workforce development programs, food sovereignty, and sustainable housing initiatives. And we will continue to improve the visibility and prominence of our community features and services through Cal Poly Humboldt's libraries, Discovering Humboldt Google Maps project. And we've conducted a workshop with the Google Maps project. And sorry, my daughter's coming in right now. And so this will create our enhance our digital presence of the area and connect all of the, all of the related services and everything wonderful about Humboldt. So please visit us at the Arcata Humboldt Welcome Center. We're at 1635 Hinden Road across the bridge from Valley West. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Annalisa, and thank you to all of our chamber board members and ambassadors that are here, and thank you to the chamber for all that you guys do for our community and for tourism in Arcata. Awesome. Our last proclamation this evening will be in honor of Older Americans Month, May 2023, and this will be read by Councilmember White.
Thank you. In honor of Older Americans Month, May 2023, whereas the City of Arcata includes a growing number of older Americans who contribute their time, wisdom, and experience to our community, and whereas communities benefit when people of all ages, abilities, and backgrounds have the opportunity to participate and live independently. And whereas the City of Arcata recognizes the need to create a community that offers the services and supports older adults may need to make choices about how they age. And whereas the City of Arcata can work to build an even better community for our older residents by not limiting our thinking about aging and exploring and combating stereotypes, emphasizing the positive aspects of aging, inspiring older adults to push past traditional boundaries, and embracing our community's diversity. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the City Council of City of Arcata recognizes May 2023 to be Older Americans Month and urges residents to take the time to recognize older adults who are aging their way and serving our community. Dated May 17th, 2023, signed by Mayor Sarah Schaefer. So, and I'm be presenting this to Maggie Kraft from Area 1 from Aging.
Thank you, Mayor Schaefer. Thank you, members of the City Council. It's nice to be here in person. It's been a few years for me. Thank you for this proclamation, and thank you for recognizing the opportunities we have to explore what it's like to live in a community, intergenerational community, and provide support and to all members, no matter their age. I wanted to start with just a quote from a woman named Ashton Applewhite. She is a expert on ageism and ableism and trying to dismantle both of those things in looking at how we do that. So I want to read this quote. Aging isn't a problem to be solved or a disease to be cured or something icky that old people do. She said that. It's how we move through life, and more of us are doing more of it than ever before in human history. What stands between us and making the most of these longer lives? Ageism, judging, stereotyping, and discriminating against people on the basis of how old we think they are. Ageism is what we experience anytime someone assumes that we're too old or too young for something, instead of finding out who we are and what we're capable of. But we can fight ageism, and she goes on to say that we can fight ageism just by being aware that it exists and start to think about and acknowledging our own prejudices about aging and aging. Integrating our lives with people of all ages. An equitable society for all ages requires intergenerational collaboration. And instead of labeling people like boomers or millennials, describe them simply as older or younger. It's simpler, and it's going to always be right and accurate, and it doesn't divide us or stereotype. It emphasizes that we age in relation to others and that we're all on this ride together. If you want to know more about Ashton Applewhite and the work she's doing to dismantle aging, go to oldschool.info. She also has a blog that's called yoisthisageist.com, which is very interesting. People send things in and say, this happened, what do you think? And the last thing she talks about is activism. We need to watch for behaviors and attitudes in ourselves and around us and challenge them and start creating language and models that support every age and every stage of life. We are, the other thing I wanted to mention, we had a little open house this afternoon for people to come and see us at our new location, and we had birthday cake, so if you missed it, you missed birthday cake. There unfortunately is leftover, so we're going to be doing that again tomorrow, eating cake, that is. But we're conducting a two-county survey, Humboldt and Del Norte, and it's part of the first ever statewide survey of older adults. So rather than all 33 area agencies on aging around the state doing our own special little surveys kind of in our little world, we're doing a statewide one. And we're really excited about this. We're surveying people age 55 and older. And if you received one of these surveys in the mail, some people were chosen randomly, please fill it out. And you know who you are. And if you didn't receive one but would like to participate, we're opening it up for the community to participate. And if you'd like to do that, you could call the Area 1 Agency on Aging and ask them to, I don't have a screen to show you the website, but maybe I can get it to somebody here, but it's real simple. It's POLCO, P-O-L-C-O, excuse me, .us/area1open, the number 1. 55 plus, it's totally anonymous, and we really are looking at people's, we want to hear what makes this community livable for all of us, what makes the community a place that we want to live, and how can we make it better. So the results will be shared with all the different cities and counties, so you can see what we have according to the zip codes that you serve. So we're really excited about that and can't wait to see the results. Again, I want to thank you for this proclamation and wish you a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. All right, that takes us to our next item this evening, which is early oral communications. The City Council values your comments, and this 15-minute time period allows people to address the council on matters that are not on the agenda. Please know that pursuant to the Brown Act, the council cannot discuss or take action on items that are not listed on the posted agenda. At the end of all oral communications, the council may respond to statements. Supported requests that require council action will be set for a future agenda or referred to staff. Speakers may be limited to 2 minutes, and there will also be time for public comment specifically on each agenda item, and then again at the end of the meeting under item 12. So please make your way to the podium if you have one of those cards. Again, we're taking the first 4 speakers in person, and then we will go to Zoom, and if we have enough time, we will finish out that 15 minutes with the rest of the folks in person. All right. Take it away, please.
Hi, my name is Joanne McGarry. I come here often, and I've started bringing things with me on a regular basis. This is Thornton Wilder's play, Our Town, and I just think the concept of Our Town and talking about generational things, this play is about that, but Arcata is another town that we really need to focus on in terms of the future. Which brings me to a couple of issues. I sent you all an email today with a fascinating article about complexity and complicatedness. And one of the things that I want to share in that regard is that when I talk about the THC, transparency and truth and trust, honesty, humaneness and humility, caring, compassion, and connectedness, I just wanted to remind you that this is a complex structure, but we can see it all very clearly. This piece of paper, if I fold it, complicates things because we can't see everything. And I really think that Arcata needs to be a town that doesn't fold things, and that Arcata needs to be much more transparent so that we can know the truth and that we can be a trusting community. So my last thing I want to say is I contacted the county planning department to find out about the draft climate action plan. And I spoke to a gentleman there who says a CEQA document is being produced and it'll come out soon, but that doesn't mean that communities, municipalities need to stop doing what they can do right away in terms of climate action. So Arcata, let's get in the vanguard and do something. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next speaker, please.
Good evening. August 23rd, in this chamber, you had a joint session between the Planning Commission and the City Council. The majority of you decided 7 stories was the limit you were going to do for the Gateway project. And also, that was also a straw vote with Responsible Growth, Scott McBain's proposal, which the majority turned down the idea of having architects, experts in sea level rise that would be on a subcommittee that would work with the planning commission. Unfortunately, you didn't go for that, and I'd like to point out that since that time, our planning commission, basically, we have one person, Judith, who has quite a bit of experience, but the rest of them have not ever even taken an urban design class in their lives and from college. And I'd also point out on city council, I don't think anybody's ever had a class. So we're at this point, you know, in January where we had the fire district here and basically said, please do not at this time build anything over 3 stories, and you know, we'll be happy to go over that if we get the funding, if we get the equipment, if we get the personnel. And nothing has been said since then. It's just so it's kind of interesting how we're pursuing all of this without that answer. And I'd also point out that the standpoint that another big element is the grant that we need to do for the Coastal Commission that's going to address where we can build, and that affects the Gateway project, that affects the updates for the general plan and also the coastal plan. And I think that's coming up tonight, and that's going to take some substantial time in the future to find out how the results of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello to council and staff. This is Jim Becker, and I am going to report on signatures for the petition and a few other things. As you know, Patricia and I and others have been circulating the paper petition to designate L Street Rails Trails Linear Park and to abandon the K&L couplet. Total signatures to date now are 730, and there are a number of businesses and individuals carrying petitions, so that number will probably start to rise more quickly. Our shared vision is to preserve and enhance the open spaces north and south ends of L Street, rails with trails, and to dedicate the entire segment of L Street corridor to be a linear park. We also support the K Street, the improvements to K Street that will increase pedestrian and bicycle safety, and we hope these improvements will be started as soon as possible. Alternative unilateral improvements to K Street were presented to the Planning Commission by the city engineer, included low-cost options for reducing parking in favor of increased space for pedestrians and cyclists. Another low-cost solution would be to install stop signs at 7th and 9th Street and a flashing 9 at 8th Street for the Redwood Coast Montessori School. More than 15 people attended a May 10th Creamery District Forum, and many expressed interest in slowing down K Street and making it safer to cross, to abandon the couplet, and to support the designation of L Street as a linear park. Many also spoke in favor of stop signs on K Street as a low-cost solution. On a daily basis, I'll cross in, or wave my arm at vehicles to slow down because I don't see deceleration. I think this would be a good first step. Big red stop signs catch people's eyes, and it would be a good start. Somewhere between 30 and 40 people attended yesterday's meeting at the Creamery District. That was a forum presented by staff. Many familiar people were there from the May 10th meeting. The format was a little more constrained for discussing the L Street Linear Park. However, a number of attendees expressed their support for abandoning the couplet and to preserve open spaces for the linear park. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jim.
Yes, good evening. I'm Fred Wise. As Jim Becker mentioned, there were 2 meetings. Last week, there were about 50 people on the 16th, and last night, there were about 40 people. Specifically, we did not discuss the L Street Linear Park or the Creamery District being its own separate gateway area district, as has been brought up at the Planning Commission level. But these things were discussed at what was called the Open Ideas table. And all the Post-it notes and the 5 butcher paper sheets of notes are on arcata1.com, arcata1.com/council currently, and there'll be more there. Staff will be giving a report to the Planning Commission on Tuesday. The items that were discussed were included the possible displacement of residents and businesses, not by the city, but by landlords as properties become redeveloped. The progress on Gateway Plan and General Plan update continues. In my estimate, the level of completion relative to the schedule is about 20 to 30%, meaning that if there's 3 or 4 items on the schedule, one is discussed, and sometimes the one gets done and sometimes it does not. I came across a schedule from close to a year ago. It's from July 2022, which shows completion of the recommendation of the Gateway Area Plan and the General Plan by that October. So as you can see, we're behind. It's also not clear to me when exactly the Planning Commission is going to be reviewing the draft of the form-based code. It's possible you will get it without their review. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's check in with hands raised online, but I do see we have one more in-person interested comment.
And I see no online public comment for early oral communications.
All right, so we can take a couple more in-person speakers. I see one lined up here. Please step up to the podium. Yes, thank you.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Calder Johnson. I work in Eureka, but I also live in Bayside and consider myself an honorary Arcata citizen, whether you like it or not. I've been here most of my life. I have 3 degrees from Cal Poly. I still insist on calling it HSU. I'm coming here tonight because the Harding just up the street here was vandalized again last week, and this is the 8th time. Number 8. Most of those would be easily defined also as hate crimes. This last one was on top of their beautiful sign, spray painted in big, bold, spray painted letters, USA Trump. The 8th time. I struggle with this a lot because I talk to other people, and sometimes they will say like, "Well, gosh, that's horrible. I feel so bad about that." But also, that's not us. That's not Arcata. That's not who we are. And at this point, I really have to say, like, I am concerned that if we do not do anything, then no, that is us. That does represent us. And I really, really, really worry about that. So I don't want to be up here, one of these people up here saying, well, what are you going to do about it, City Council? But I am, please, asking all of you into, like, how can we actually really, truly address this? Because it must be addressed. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Good evening, Patricia Cambianica. Fred and Jim talked a little bit about the 2 meetings at the Playhouse. I'll keep it short. The first meeting on Wednesday, the 10th, was a business owner actually arranged that meeting for the businesses and the residents of the Creamery District to discuss how the couplet would affect their business and their livelihoods and their life living in the Creamery District. And that was really heavily attended by a lot of people who hadn't been to one of our gatherings before. It was really encouraging to hear those voices and all their concerns. Most of them were definitely thinking that not only would the linear park idea that we were proposed to have been built in that area at the 2010 plan that the city planned, was to integrate that path as, in the city's words, a vibrant community gathering space along with L Street. They remember that plan, and we discussed how it would really help business, and and how a couplet would really deter business. And so move ahead to last night's Tuesday 16th meeting, which was a city-led meeting at the Playhouse. We were told not to talk about the L Street Linear Park or the K Street couplet. I think this did a great disservice. The L Street runs straight through the heart of the Creamery District. It runs straight through the front of the Creamery itself. People weren't happy with it. Some people left. And anyways, they continued to speak about the L Street Park regardless. So thank you. Just wanted to give you that update.
Thank you, Patricia. All right. Seeing no more in-person public comment, and we're nearing our 15 minutes anyway, that will take us to the consent calendar. So all matters on the consent calendar are considered to be routine by the City Council and are enacted in one motion. There is no separate discussion of any of these items, and if discussion is required, that item can be removed from the consent calendar and considered separately. At the end of the reading of the consent calendar, council members or members of the public can request that an item be removed for separate discussion. And just, I'm going to ask, last time we were pretty loosey-goosey because there weren't very many people here, but there's a lot of people here tonight. So if you'd like to remove an item from the consent calendar, please come up to the podium so folks at home and online can see who's removing the item, and then kind of stand by because we'll call you right back up to make your comment on that item. So if you would like to remove an item, please come up to the podium. All right, so item A, approve the minutes of the City Council meeting of April 19th, 2023. Item B, approve the minutes of the City Council meeting of May 3rd, 2023. C, biweekly report on disbursements. Item D, award a contract to the 2023 timber harvest logging and trucking to George Huffman, DBA, Northern Roads and Timber for the amount of $300 per 1,000 board feet, MBF, for logging, $91 MBF for logs hauled to Arcata, $136.80 MBF for logs hauled to Scotia, and $106 MBF for logs hauled to either Samoa, Eureka, or Corbell, and authorize the city manager to execute all applicable documents. Item E, award a contract in the amount of $334,783.39 to GHD Incorporated for professional services to support the project specifications and estimates, PS&E, and right-of-way, ROW, phases of the Annie and Mary Trail Connectivity Project, and to authorize the city manager to execute all applicable documents. Item F, adopt resolution number 223-54, approving an application for grant funds from the California Coastal Commission's LCP Local Assistant Grant Program for conducting a sea level rise vulnerability assessment and capital improvement project adaptation plan for coastal resiliency, and authorize the city manager to execute all applicable documents. And item G, approve an amendment to the agreement between OpenGov Incorporated and the City of Arcata for deployment and a 3-year subscription of budgeting and planning and enterprise asset management software module in the amount of $341,739, and authorize the city manager to execute all applicable documents. So are there any items that council members would like to pull from the consent calendar? Okay, any items staff wants to pull? All right, so if members of the public would like to pull an item, please come up to the podium and state which item you'd like to pull.
I request F to be pulled.
Okay, thank you. We have F.
Whatever letter cash disbursements is.
Okay, that's C. Beautiful.
Item G for a brief description of that. Thanks.
All right.
So, I'm sorry, was one of them E?
No, one of them was not E.
Okay. So then I would move for approval of A, on the consent calendar, A, B, C, D, E.
A, B, D, and E. We pulled C.
Okay, I didn't know which one got pulled. Sorry.
I'll second.
All right. So we have a motion and a second for items A, B, D, and E. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Motion carries unanimously. And so please, for item C, please make your comment.
Hi, my name's Joanne McGarry, and I asked at the last meeting how I go about understanding the cash disbursement listings for the biweekly reports at each meeting here we have, and I was informed that I can contact the city manager. And I just want to say, with all that's happening in terms of renewal or extension of a lot of things that have been happening with Arcata House Partnership, and a lot of this disbursements in these biweekly things with significant amount of monies being dispersed, I would like the council to consider at a pretty soon date to ask for a report from Arcata House Partnership about all the monies that they have spent for the Grove, for the safe parking, for the extreme weather, et cetera, in their ongoing programs, just so we have a better understanding of the different flow of the different amounts that I see on the cash disbursements. So that's all I was wanting to say at this time.
Okay, thank you. So do we have any more comments specifically on item C? We're on item C.
So I move for approval of item C.
All right.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second on item C. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries unanimously. That now takes us to item F.
Item F, Coastal Commission grant. This is one of the most important things that you're going to be addressing in the next year and a half. You cannot move forward with the gateway without the results of this grant. You cannot move forward with the update of the general plan without the results of this grant. You can't move forward on several different things. So this issue should be put on into new business, where we have a staff describe how long this is going to take, the details of this grant, because this is everything as far as your decision making in the next year, and we need to have a detailed analysis of it as exactly what's going on with this grant.
Thank you. Do we have any more comment on item F?
I move for adoption of item C.
F.
F, excuse me, for item F.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for F. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Can I ask a question? By approving, then that negates by approving, does that negate the request by one of the public speakers?
I don't know what you mean, I guess.
Well, there was a request that we put this on new business, so I guess, because I'm new at this. so bear with me.
We can, someday talk about having an item on the agenda where we get an update on how this grant is being used, and we talk about the local coastal plan a lot, but we can't just change it to new business tonight.
Got it. So by approving, I'm not saying it's not going to come on a further agenda item, we're just,
Yeah, no, this item is, the council approved us applying for additional funds to do analysis. We have received notification that we can receive those funds. This is a resolution adopting, for the council to adopt, for us to take back to the funder to confirm
Aye.
those funds. Okay.
Great, thank you. Okay, is that a good enough vote? Even though it was broken up, I feel like we've got 4 ayes now, clerk. No, she said aye. Did you say aye? Okay, yes. All right, so F carries, and then now we are moving to item G, please.
Yeah, item G, from what I understood when I read the agenda packet, it sounds like this is a cost-saving measure, and I was just curious, maybe, and I did read through it, so I'm not coming into it cold, but if you just had a brief description on that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah. Well,
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, city manager.
Yeah, in brief, actually prior to the pandemic, I will try to make this brief, but several years ago, the council had a goal of really trying to consolidate a lot of the softwares that the city uses for anything from, budgeting to permitting to utility billing. We have a lot of internal softwares that track our water and wastewater systems. And we started down a path for online permitting with a company that didn't pan out prior to the pandemic. So we picked that project up and in January launched online building permits, and this through OpenGov as a new platform. This platform has been very successful. I'll say as successful as we ever have seen a single software platform be. Everything has its limitations, but this one really seems to have the ability for us to build modules to meet the needs of the programs that the city has. So the intent of this is to really start moving a lot of our other software systems onto a single platform, and a platform that is much more transparent to the community. So for example, the biggest piece here, and to quote an earlier public comment, we will be moving our entire budget online. So we will be unfolding the piece of paper and it will all be online. And in fact, if it delivers as we intend, that will be updated actually daily from our accounting system online. So the public can look at any time what's been budgeted, what we've spent, and what's remaining in those budget items. So that's a big piece of it. The other big piece of it that we are already spending money on is asset management software. And CIP, our capital improvement program. So hopefully getting rid of those softwares and consolidating all in one system. Again, so when the public goes on and wants to look at a capital improvement program, they can also see where it's tied to the budget, and these programs will talk to each other. So we do think long-term, I know the staff report says cost savings. I will say cost neutral over time. The city does spend an exorbitant amount of time working in Excel. We still will. We'll still do some accounting in Excel. But the idea is that if everybody is putting things into one single database, that we can query things, the council can query reports to see how we're spending in certain areas, the public can. And so we're really looking forward to this predominantly as a transparency and as a one-stop shop for staff, for the council and the community to have everything in one area. I hope I haven't oversold it. Staff is really excited. Our new finance director is really excited. She's really wanted to see this kind of transparency in public finance, so we're looking forward to that piece. In fact, if approved tonight, you will see a draft budget that looks similar to what you're used to, but we will build the final budget in this program as a plan.
Okay, thank you, City Manager.
So I would move for item G, and in the planning department, I pulled a permit. I was the first one to pull a permit using the new system. So far, it's been good.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second for item G. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, motion passes unanimously. And now that takes us into new business. So our first new business item this evening is to receive a report of Arcata Main Street's recent activities and upcoming plans tied to Arcata's American Rescue Plan Act funding. So take it away.
We do have Board President
Tomasa
here tonight. I did just want to point out to the public and to the council, we did receive a written report just late this afternoon from Arcata Main Street. I have printed those and put them on the dais. I have also put several copies in the back of the room on the counter there, right under the water billing sign, if anybody wants a copy of it as well. But thank you, Tanasa. Go ahead.
So hello, I'm Tanasa, the new president of Arcata Main Street. Hello, Mayor and City Council. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for your time. Sorry, this is a little hard for me to read. So during the fiscal year 22-23, Arcata Main Street has produced and still working on producing over 40 events in the Arcata Downtown Business District. Next year, we plan to produce at least 10 more on the plaza. In order to support our service agreement, Arcata Main Street is requesting a continuation of city funding that has been approved. Our board of directors has been in constant transition period this year. Shoshana Anthony transitioned from paid staff to a board member and started a new full-time position at Humboldt County Library. Alex Stillman transitioned from the board president to city liaison after taking a seat on the city council. Monica Muniz has served as board president for the majority of the year and recently resigned her seat on the board to transition to interim executive director, spending her office hours dedicated to fulfilling Arcata Main Street service agreement with the city. Tanasa Daniel has been approved board president with Shannon Yodowitz as vice president and Amy Fowler as treasurer. The board is making a push at summer events to recruit more board members. Staffing in July of 2022. AMS had 2 employees as on staff regularly. At the end of quarter 2, we had only 1 staff member. The board began the search for a new executive director. After interviewing multiple candidates throughout quarter 2 and not finding a good fit, the decision was made to staff the support roles first. At the beginning of quarter 3, the position of event coordinator and marketing coordinator was filled. Overall, AMS has spent $70,000, $367.62 on staffing this fiscal year with a partially staffed office. The event coordinator is Gil Miracle, was hired in January as event coordinator. The board plans to expand this position to create more programming for downtown events. Marketing coordinator, Zach was hired in January on AMS social media marketing coordinator. He has been working on business spotlights, AMS event marketing material, and AMS website. Next fiscal year, we would like to expand the position to office social media marketing classes and marketing resources for businesses. The executive director, at the end of Q4, we would like to expand for a part-time executive director to oversee operations. Moving into 2023-24, we plan to further develop the position to bring back monthly casual downtown business meetings and constantly work with other organizations, specifically Arcata Chamber of Commerce. Administrative assistant. The board would like to hire a part-time administrative assistant to aid with city reports, minutes, and agendas, and provide support to staff. 2023 event list. Q1, we did Arts Arcata, Summer Concert Series, Sunday Art Markets, and the July 4th celebration on the plaza. Q2, we did Arts Arcata, Trunk or Treat Halloween on the plaza, Season of Wonder of Light, including the Santa Parade, setting up downtown decorations, Small Business Saturday, Holiday Open House, Santa Parade, Holiday Sunday Art Market, Snow Party, and Last Minute Shopping Night. Q3, we provided Arts Arcata, March Chamber of Commerce First Thursday Mixer at Humboldt Haberdashery, Downtown Arcata Ball, and March Arts Arcata. Q4, we did Arts Arcata. We are going to do the Oyster Festival kickoff party at Wrangletown, the Oyster Festival back on the Arcata Plaza. And monthly, we're planning a new monthly Cash Mob Business Spotlight. In the fiscal year 2023-2024 projected expenses, our general annual operating expenses are $18,066.17. The projected event expenses are $96,250. Projected staffing cost is $125,840, and that would total to $239,666.17. Do you want me to go over the projected event calendar?
Give us the highlights.
Okay.
What are you guys excited about?
So basically, we're very, very excited about Oyster Festival being back on the Arcata Plaza. We're trying to highlight as many events we can get to bring people to shop and spend money in downtown, spend money in Arcata, come to Arcata. So our projected attendance throughout last year and this year is going to be over 25,000 people coming to the Arcata Plaza, coming to Arcata businesses through the events that we're putting on. So we're just really excited to create more possibilities so that we can drive business. And we're getting very, very excited with the new staff we have, with the new board members, the board recruitment, the member recruitment, and we're trying to facilitate all these things to create and offset, and make all this funding happen. So, yep.
All right. Thank you, Tasa. Do we have any questions from the council?
Sure. I'd just like to remind everybody before we get started that all we're doing tonight is receiving a report. We're not approving any additional funding. We're just seeing where they are. So I just want to preface with that before we get into anything crazy. Thank you. I think that the staff that you've hired has done a remarkable job so far. I'm super excited for Oysterfest. I think that you guys have been doing a tremendous amount of work, and I thank you for that. One thing I did not see in this report, I do believe that part of our the contract that we had together was to facilitate some events that represent some BIPOC events, and aside from the Dia de los Muertos, I really don't see anything like that. Is there anything in the works for that?
Well, we've partnered with the Humboldt, Black Humboldt for their event. We're trying to partner with a lot of different organizations to help them with their events and do what we can to represent those. And we have a lot more events that we're in the planning process of doing. So it's been a really tricky year with the transition and all the hiring. So we're trying to focus on what we already had planned, and now we have a lot more events to promote and do that in the future.
Sure. Do you have an estimate, do you think, of how much you expect Oyster Fest to?
I mean, we're hoping 15,000 people show up this year.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Okay. I have high expectations.
Yeah, definitely.
Just saying.
Yeah.
All right.
And we have a full budget and a report on that available too.
Do you think that there is enough work for 1, 2, 3, 4 positions? Are you hoping for a full-time executive director, a full-time event?
Our thoughts right now are to have, so instead of going forward with an executive director, we wanted to split that position into 3, which was going to be the event, the social media, and the office assistant. Right now, we took away that office assistant position to put the part-time executive director. And I think going forward with that model is going to be our most successful bet. So I think it would just be 3.
Sure. All right.
And 2 of those are part-time, and 1 of them is really like the full-time position.
All right. Well, I'll wait till we get our budget to talk anything about that, but I just want to thank you, your board, everybody involved in Main Street. Shout out to Shoshana for for holding it together and being amazing. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Big time.
And
she really pulled us through the pandemic, and without her, I don't really believe this organization would have survived. And right now, what we've done to come out of this pandemic is a lot of hard work and a lot of catching up, and I feel like we're in the best place we've been in a long time. So I feel like it's going to be a very successful and good future for us.
Sure. I'm looking forward to working with you in all ways.
Definitely.
Cheers.
And I would just like to thank Alex for all her work over the years. She's the one that created the thing. Yeah. And
Yes.
Stacy too. So they come and help us at almost every meeting. So we really appreciate their help.
And so this organization began many years ago as Arcata Downtown Business Community. And we wanted to make sure it had community on there because we felt like it was really important for us to act as a community. And I remember when we started it, and that was way back when Julie Fulkerson was beginning Plaza Design, and I was involved in the Garden Gate. So we're back in the early 90s.
Absolutely.
So we've done well over the years.
Yeah.
But I still love the name, Arcata Downtown Business Community.
And that will always be our main goal, is providing help to the business community and the community as a whole. So that's really what our focus is in everything that we plan. Yeah, thank you.
Great.
Anything else?
Any more questions or comments? Go ahead.
Please, thank you. I know there's a lot of people really excited about the Oyster Festival, and I'm very much in support of Arcata Main Street and understand the importance of it. I just had a couple questions for clarification. It looks like you spent $70,000-ish for 22-23. Does that mean you have extra money that you can roll over into, say, the 23-24, or even possibly into a third year?
Well, so we just turned in all of our city requests, so we actually haven't received any of the funding yet.
Right, you'll get reimbursed.
Yeah. So we have pretty much plans to, all the money is basically spent. That was just for staffing. That wasn't for any operation or event or anything else. That was like literally just for staffing.
Right.
Yeah. So all of the events cost a lot more money as well.
So I guess maybe just because I'm learning, Karen, was there a 2-year $100,000 per year for staffing, and does that mean they have some extra money?
What the council set aside from our ARPA funds, our American Rescue Act Plan funds, was 100,000 potential. They set aside 200,000,
right,
anticipating a 1-year contract of 100,000 each year with Main Street, tied to a specific scope of work. So we did, as Tanasa indicated, we did just receive the 3 sets of quarterly reports. They are finalizing with their bookkeeper an actual invoice, and then staff will take those invoices and connect that to the actual scope of work to see what would be covered in those invoices. So I don't know at this point exactly how much they've spent against the scope of work that we were funding. And if they'll, and we are only in, the beginning, this is probably through April, best case. So you still have 2 months left in the fiscal year, that quarter. So I'll have a better sense once we really compare how much of their actual expenses match against that scope of work and how much would not be funded by that. And then we can update you hopefully by our budget meeting is the plan.
So it might be a good problem to have if they end up with some extra money.
I think I don't
We'll
know.
see how that rolls out. Also, the PowerPoint presentation that was included, thank you, it was awesome. I noticed that part of the scope of work was attending committees and commissions, and we're finally in person, yay. And I was just wondering if the committees are going to be part of that work plan, and if you could give us an update on how that was going.
So just to clarify, actually, the PowerPoint that Councilmember White is speaking of is the one that you provided last year. I just provided to her as background because she wasn't here for last year's meeting.
So not every, it wasn't, it wasn't in everybody's packet.
No.
Okay, great. Thank you for that, getting me up to speed. So, and then, so to that, there was something about an alley improvement initiative, and I was wondering, like, is that still something we're doing, and what is it?
It was something that they had originally thought about, but it did not make the final scope of work.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. And I really love the Community Ambassador Program, which I understand came out of some recommendations from the Plaza Improvement Task Force. And I was just wondering, will you be, as you go forward, will you be considering some of the other recommendations from that task force, or what does that look like for you? I know there was a lot of recommendations in there.
That was Stacy's program.
Right. Right, but there were recommendations in there that could really help and benefit, I guess, Arcata Main Street is what I was seeing, that correlation.
Absolutely. We're
Great.
always open to taking recommendations from all people.
Great.
And moving forward with the things that best suit us in the community, for sure.
And
I'll just add on that topic just because I've connected those dots and know and have talked to some of your staff and know what's going on. But I mean, like the great example was the arts that you guys did last month where they did close down part of the plaza, and that was a big thing of Plaza Improvement Task Force is having these community centered events where people can walk on the plaza and utilize the space free of cars, and also the wonderful trunk or treat event that you guys did that was closing down the whole plaza to just kind of open it up to everybody and let kids walk around and get candy, and it made a really good community center event. So that's one just example of the Plaza Improvement Task Force stuff that they've started to incorporate in some of their events.
that's wonderful. I guess, and this may not be relevant, but maybe Karen can. So I noticed that when COVID hit, there was some discussion about doing this Plaza Improvement Task Force annually, and that there was $150,000 that maybe had got reabsorbed in there because we had to do what we had to do. Will that be something that we're going to consider going forward to further support Arcata Main Street?
Those were separate discussions, I will say, historically. When the council first came out of finalizing the Plaza Improvement Task Force, we did have a goal that fiscal year to set aside $150,000 towards that plan. And the council went through a prioritization. Actually, the task force went through a prioritization of their recommendations, and the council then further refined that, and I'd be happy to share that with you as well.
Okay.
In the end, when we got down to brass tacks budgets that next year, they focused on the number one priority, which was the removal of the center of the plaza. And they funded that at $30,000, and the rest of the budget at that year was reabsorbed. So we can talk about that more in the budget. I will say I don't
great.
have that money set aside right now next year as a recommendation, but we can certainly talk about it during budget.
And I apologize for having so many questions, just because I'm trying to get myself up to speed and learning more so that I can understand. So one of the things that was in the slide from last year was to talk about increasing connectivity of business districts throughout Arcata. I'm assuming that would be like Uniontown, Northtown, and I'm wondering how Valley West Business District, which there really isn't one, but there's over 70 businesses, might fit into that picture or not?
Yeah, so it fits very well. So one thing we did last year was the Season of Wonder and Light.
Yeah.
So we went to, we had the Santa Parade through every business district, and I personally went to every business district and talked to them and like, oh, let's, can we make like parties? Do you want to like, how do you want to be involved?
We held the
and what
party
we
out
could
in
do?
Valley West and tabled out there. It was
Exactly,
wonderful.
yeah. So that's what we're
So
trying
we'll
to do.
continue to do more of that. I'm so
Absolutely.
excited to hear that.
Absolutely.
And then just one more question, and I apologize. Let me just look through here and make sure that we're not making any decisions right now, is my understanding. So we'll talk about the third year funding at a later date. Okay. And then there was one more, and I'm trying to understand though. So in slide 4, which is from last year, it was requesting, it talked about a full-time director position and a part-time communication administration to oversee, and then something about to stable the operations of a newly formed single entity resulting from a merger of Arcata Main Street with Arcata Chamber of Commerce. And I'm just trying to get myself up to speed. Is that?
Yeah, that was a discussion item that we had. When we had 2 executive directors not available in either organization, we thought maybe it was an opportunity that the 2 organizations could start to work together and become one with maybe a new name, but each one of them has different functions that they do, and that they could be very compatible together. At this point, that hasn't happened, but it's not that it won't happen or couldn't happen or is not, that is out of everyone's mind.
So it's a conversation still on the table?
Yeah, very much so.
Thank you, and we're sorry about all the 21 questions, but I feel like I'm getting close to up to speed.
Yeah. Both boards did have 2 meetings on that, and we just couldn't go forward at this time with that, but maybe in the future it would be a decision. And then also with the staffing issue, I didn't bring up that we did have to hire a full-time tax person and a bookkeeper. So that's 2 extra things that we had to do that are in the report, but.
That was one of my questions so thank you for answering that. Appreciate that.
All right, if we don't have any more immediate questions from the council up here, we will open this up for public comment. So if there's anybody that would like to comment on this item, please make your way to the podium and step up to the mic and go for it.
Hi, my name's Joanne McGarry, and I do remember that meeting where the discussion of monies for Main Street with ARPA monies was done, and there were a lot of Main Street business people in the audience here. And I think when I was asking throughout this whole period of time, I kept getting different stories about, well, contracts weren't even signed, we don't have the money yet. It was just very confusing. And I'm glad that we now have something in writing, and something is looking like it's coming together differently than how it was originally proposed. But this is the kind of stuff when it involves a lot of money and everything. I really want the organizations to commit to some certain things. When I talked about climate change, when he talked about, or somebody here talked about the Halloween and blocking off the plaza and the Plaza Improvement Task Force, these are the kinds of things that Arcata Main Street and other organizations putting on events need to commit to. They need to commit to a zero waste ethic, and they need to commit to less cars and more accessible other means of transportation to and from events. That's like what we should be doing as a community to show the tourists that come here, to show the community that we are doing something really active for the climate. So I would really like for organizations that get money from the city to commit to ethical principles for climate action. Things like zero waste, things like less car-focused activities, and expanding the access to those in other parts of the city and Humboldt County. And I just, a lot of money just gets given away to people, and I want them to be out front and responsible for our future and how we need to represent ourselves to those who are living here and those who visit. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there any other in-person public comment before we go to online? Because we will not go back and forth. All right. Who's online?
I have no raised hands for online public comment.
All right, well, that takes us to the end of public comment. Any final thoughts or comments from the council before we move to our next item? All right, well, thank you to Main Street, to their staff and board who are here this evening, and thank you to NASA for the presentation. We appreciate it, and we're all looking forward to Oyster Fest, I think, so thank you. All right, that takes us next to item B, which is to provide prioritization of potential new or expanded solid waste, recycling, and organics collection services, and authorize the city manager to enter into sole source negotiations with Recology to meet Senate Bill 1383's requirements for curbside collection and hauling. And I see Deputy Environmental Services. Oh wait, I see both Emilys, Director Sinkhorn and Deputy Director Emily Benvey, to take it away for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, council members and community members. Tonight, we have a couple different objectives to bring the council up to speed on the status of franchise agreement negotiations with Recology, or potential negotiations with Recology, as well as couching that in a general framework of SB 1383 progress, and also to receive feedback and prioritization from councils on services outside of SB 1383 compliance. SB 1383, as a reminder, is the short-lived Climate Pollutants Act. It essentially translates to, in common understanding, the organics requirements, if you will, or the composting regulations. So before delving into the broader context, as I mentioned, our ultimate recommendation is to receive prioritization of potential new or expanded solid waste, recycling, and organics collection services, as well as authorizing the city manager to enter into sole source negotiations with Recology to meet 1383 requirements for curbside collection and hauling. I have certainly updated the council a number of times on SB 1383, and so I'll keep it brief, but I do think it's helpful to think of that context front and center before we delve into more specifics. So as a reminder, 1383 requires the city of Arcata to provide organics collection services to all residents and businesses, establish an edible food recovery program, conduct education and outreach to the community, procure recyclable and recovered organic products, secure access to recycling and edible food recovery capacity, as well as a host of monitoring compliance and conducting enforcement activities. So I've returned to this slide a number of times. Happy to report we have more check marks than the last time. So as far as coming into full compliance with 1383, we have completed the organic waste recycling capacity analysis that was led by Humboldt County. Similarly, the food rescue capacity analysis has been completed. Back in December, the council adopted the regulatory mechanism, the city's local ordinance. We are in process of identifying short-term organics waste processing facility. HWMA is leading that, and I'll pause and mention that Director Eric Keller-Heckman is here this evening to answer questions as necessary. We are in process of developing the mandatory education and outreach plan, amending the franchise agreement, and sourcing curbside collection infrastructure. So those three elements sort of interplay into this franchise agreement discussion that we'll jump into. We're in process of developing the edible food recovery program. The council has seen iterations of that come before the agenda in coordination with Humboldt County and the other local county municipalities. We're in process of developing procurement analysis and recommendations. And then finally, after the franchise agreement is approved, the curbside collection rates will need to be adopted. So I've mentioned this franchise agreement. I don't think what I've done before this council is really provided a general overview of what is a franchise agreement, why do we have one, and how does it work within the city. So in brief summary, a franchise agreement is a contract for the curbside collection and hauling of solid waste in a given area. Currently, Arcata has a franchise agreement with Recology. And we have a franchise agreement for efficient and orderly handling of solid waste, for rate distribution across a broader customer base, and it's effectively similar as other utilities. So another way one could think about it is we have PG&E for our local energy providers. We have the city providing water and sewer services. The water comes through Humboldt Bay Water District. If we had 1,000 different utility providers, there would be a lot of infrastructure. In Arcata, it would be less efficient. You know, people would be duplicating, wires would be crossed quite literally, most likely. And so it's similar with solid waste. It makes sense to have, in general, one overall franchise hauler within the city. It makes the most sense from an efficient standpoint as well as from a resource use standpoint. And part of the franchise agreement is the city receives franchise fee revenue. Currently, we receive 10% of Recology's revenue as a franchise fee. That equates to roughly $400,000 per year. The intent of that revenue is to help offset the wear and tear on city roads from all the Recology trucks, as well as providing a funding source for all the city's solid waste programs. So that includes solid waste pickup at city parks and facilities, solid waste cleanup, illegal dumping abatement, litter abatement, graffiti removal, education, outreach, enforcement, funds our green waste drop-off program, as well as staff time to comply with solid waste-related state mandates. So, for example, this evening presentation tonight. So some of the key provisions of our existing franchise agreement with Recology, and this is very high level, it's about a 30-some-odd page document, is it runs through June 30th of 2029. It includes universal curbside collection and hauling of garbage and recycling, and it includes optional curbside collection of green waste services. In thinking about SB 1383 requirements, it makes sense potentially to, rather than amend the existing franchise agreement, is to develop a new franchise agreement. Part of the reason for that is that our existing agreement and amendments thereto are outdated and they don't include current waste industry standards. A new agreement would potentially include extending our franchise agreement through a new 10-year term. It would include organics, curbside collection provisions, as well as other relevant SB 1383 requirements to bring the city into compliance. And it could also include additional city council prioritized programs and services, which I'll get into in a little bit later. So really it's an opportunity to look at our franchise agreement as a whole and think about, okay, we have our existing garbage and recycling, we have SB 1383 requirements, let's do an overhaul or a fresh look, I should say, and bring everything up to standard, as well as think about, are there other things that we might want to include? The other piece to that is the recommendation for sole source negotiations. So currently, curbside collection of organics is uniquely compatible with Recology's existing contract. Recology already runs their routes for garbage and recycling, and they already include an optional green waste collection service. So in addition to the fact that it's uniquely compatible, it builds on Recology's existing programs, being the existing curbside collection of green waste. Additionally, there are no other waste haulers in the area with capacity to provide for universal curbside collection of organics, keyword being the universal. So that's a little bit of background on what a franchise agreement is, the current state of the franchise agreement, and where we could potentially go with our franchise agreement. To think through that where we could potentially go piece, it's also important to understand the local solid waste industry context. So, brief step back, what goes into solid waste rates? On a high level, rates incorporate the cost of hauling, which is the cost to pick up from the curb and bring to a facility, whether that's Samoa or HWMA. Samoa being Recology's facility, I should say, or HWMA's facility in Eureka. Also includes tip fees, as well as any admin or overhead costs. HWMA very recently adopted their budget, and their solid waste tip fees have increased substantially for current solid waste services. We are looking at an approximately 26% increase in franchise tip fees, so the city material that's collected at the curb from Recology or by Recology to HWMA is increasing about 26%. Reasons for that on a high level include a reduced backhaul that we're seeing, Shifts in how HWMA spreads their costs, employee cost increases, a higher than normal CPI, as well as an increase in capital improvement needs. And if the council has additional questions on that, I'm sure Director Keller-Heckman could provide some additional background. Similarly, HWMA has increased their recycling processing fees. That is about a 57% increase, and a large contributing factor to that, in addition to the reasons I mentioned in the last slide, is that the contamination rates have been rising, and HWMA previously covered 15% of contamination costs, which they're no longer able to do. And so we're seeing that layered on top of the already existing increases to process. So what does that mean to current Recology ratepayers? We took one example, which is a residential 30-gallon can weekly pickup with recycling. That's a pretty standard single-family residential service size. And thinking about the increase in the solid waste tip fee as well as the recycling processing fee, in addition to the increase in CPI, we're seeing about a 15% increase, or approximately $4.38 a month. So this is, again, existing services, and I think City Manager Deemer wants to chime in.
Well, I just wanted to share with the council and the community, we're bringing these rate increases forward to you tonight because they're not actually part of the city's budget. These are changes that will affect our ratepayers, but from external sources, meaning Humboldt Waste Management Authority, or just a pass-through contractual agreement that has already been made with our hauler. So there's nothing in here that you will be adopting in your budget, but we just wanted to be transparent with our community that this is a rate increase that they will see starting July 1st on their bills based on just our current level of service. And if they have questions, to definitely reach out and call us, and we can help explain those in more detail. Also, we wanted to share this with you tonight because it does set a framework that rates are already going up. So as we look at what services we may want to add, that will increase cost. So I know that we want to add everything, but we are hoping to really have you prioritize some things more than others in case we want to try to keep rates, at a contained level and not increase them. I would estimate that at a minimum, we're probably looking at a 30% increase to add organics into our rate. We'll see. We're in negotiations. That's just a very rough calculation. We'll try to do a little better than that. But to add a whole third level of service is going to be substantial on top of what we're seeing just in the marketplace right now. So it just sets that background for your discussion tonight.
Thank you. In addition, more potentially bad news, there have been changes to our local green waste processing. So looking back at October 2022, our green waste processing fee increased from $59 a ton to $94.81 a ton to keep pace with the rising processing costs. Morris Logging purchased Mad River Hardwoods, also known as West Green Company, in April of this year, which also included assumption of the green waste drop-off and composting agreement. Currently, the city funds no-charge green waste drop-off for Arcata residents for 24 1 cubic yard load drop-offs per year. Approximately, that equates to about 200 pounds or 0.1 tons. This green waste drop-off program is funded by the franchise fee revenue, which I mentioned before, which is about $144,000 a year. So putting that in context, we receive about $400,000 a year for our overall solid waste program. About $144,000 of that is to fund the free drop-off for Arcata residents, free green waste drop-off for Arcata residents. To keep pace with that rising cost and continue to fund the program at the existing level, we are going to need to reduce the amount of no-charge drop-offs from 24 cubic yards per year to 11 cubic yards per year. So, with all of that challenging news to receive, we're hoping that the council can think through that lens and identify key program areas to consider prioritizing into our new franchise agreement. Once those program areas are prioritized, staff will bring them to Recology to develop cost-efficient programs and analyze the potential impact of those programs to the overall rates. So more specifically, delving into the programs, one to consider is the frequency of pickup. Under our current franchise agreement, residents can subscribe to weekly, monthly, or bi-monthly garbage and recycling services. Recology estimates about 200 of the roughly 5,000 customer base currently subscribe to either monthly or bi-monthly service levels. The current rate differential between weekly and monthly or bi-monthly is pretty minimal. And state law mandates that solid waste is collected every 7 days due to the putrescibles in the waste stream. And so while we haven't been following that requirement, we will need to ensure that the organics are collected every 7 days on a weekly basis through the implementation of 1383. So something to consider would be to continue to allow that frequency to remain at the monthly or bi-monthly for recycling and garbage. However, it would still need to be weekly for organics. Recology has indicated that the current system is difficult to manage. Most households on a street receive weekly service. There's one or two that'll put out a can monthly or bi-monthly, and so Recology is advised against continuing this service just for the efficiency's sake. The second factor to consider is community compost hauling. So currently, 2 community composting operators offer curbside collection of organics. And in staff conversations with those operators, it's estimated that the combined tonnage that's collected is about 5% of the total organics tonnage for Arcata, that's estimated for Arcata. The new franchise agreement could allow community composting operators to continue to collect and process a percentage of the community's overall tonnage. And in discussions with Recology, it's sounding like 10% is not, a cap of 10% is not anticipated to have a very significant impact on the overall ratepayers. Under this model, however, because SB 1383 mandates universal curbside collection, city staff would need to ensure that customers who don't have an organic service with Recology are enrolled in the curbside collection with the other community compost operators. And I will also say the other piece that has gone into that consideration of that 10% cap is not only Recology's rate considerations, but also the commitment of flow control to HWMA that Arcata provide our organic tonnage to HWMA. And so it's sounding like that 10% is a realistic estimate that wouldn't tip the balance in any direction for the overall community. Another consideration is no-cost organics kitchen caddies. So another way to phrase that is that's the little like buckets that folks often put on their countertops in their kitchens where you can throw your compost, your food scraps, I should say, and bring your food scraps out to the curb for your collection or into that bigger bin for the weekly collection. Recology provided a cost estimate for that, and at about $28 per caddy, this would result in a one-time cost of roughly $140,000 spread across the customer base, just to put some of that cost context in there. No charge community green waste services. So Arcata could consider continuing the existing green waste drop-off model. It is worth pointing out, however, that when SB 1383 services are fully rolled out, all residents and businesses will have that mandatory curbside collection. And so thinking about potential no-cost green waste options in light of that universal curbside requirement. As I mentioned, currently the city provides $144,000 of our franchise fee revenue to support that program. We could potentially look at changing the model of that no-cost service. So either updating that level, providing maybe fewer drop-offs, potentially shifting to another model where there's semi-annual amnesty days or additional collection options within city limits at set time of year, and that sort of thing, to continue to offer some no-cost green waste options, but not that standard 11 times per year. Bulky item pickups in city right-of-way. Often city staff gets calls to remove illegal dumping in city right-of-way for bulky items, couches, mattresses, TVs, you name it. So our crews will go out and retrieve those items, bring them to our facilities, and place them in the dumpsters or haul them directly. And so this could shift the burden of completing that bulky item collection over to Recology staff. Another program to consider is multifamily bulky item collection. So under the current franchise agreement, Single-family residents are allowed 2 bulky item collections per year, and they coordinate that with Recology staff. There have been requests from the community over a number of years to incorporate SB 1383 has educated levels of contamination. To provide for consistent messaging across the region, facilitate effective contamination reduction, and realize potential cost savings, education and outreach requirements could be included in the new franchise agreement with Recology. These requirements could range from the minimum necessary to meet SB 1383 provisions, or they could be more comprehensive to focus on all the waste streams, as well as providing technical support to individual customers on an as-needed basis. So, those are all the programs for council to consider prioritizing. Once those programs are prioritized, the next steps will include drafting the new franchise agreement with Recology. Recology will provide a technical cost proposal for the entire scope of services outlined in the franchise agreement. Council will review and approve the franchise agreement. We're expecting that will occur this summer. From there, the Proposition 218 rate noticing and adoption will take place. We expect that to occur in the fall. And full program rollout is slated for fall of 2025. And so I'll pause and say that rates would not be incurred for services until those services are rendered. And the reason why that's so far out, fall 2025, is it's going to take time for Recology to provide the capital improvements necessary for implementing full curbside collection, for example, ordering trucks, as well as time for HWMA to retool their Hawthorne Street facility to be able to pre-process organics and get the out-of-county hauling contracts in place. So with that, I will open it up for additional comment from City Manager Deemer. It looks like she might have a couple, as well as questions from council. And just to give us a snapshot of where we're going, my hope, gosh, I should have had this available in a Word document so I could edit it in real time, but my hope is that council will prioritize or provide their priorities in this table, and we can track that as the conversation goes. Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to ask Emily if you could provide, as we look through the technical cost proposal, could you just share with the council some of the due diligence that we're doing around also analyzing those cost proposals? The city has brought on a CPA who specializes in this to assist to make sure that our community's cost proposals are being adequately reviewed.
Yes, thank you. We have brought on a CPA for the cost proposal associated with the new SB 1383 services, which would wrap into the council recommendations tonight that we receive costs on. That CPA is also looking at the current rate application to ensure that our baseline garbage and recycling rates, we have completed due diligence on that. And shifting away from the cost proposal, but getting back into that franchise agreement language, we have also hired CSG consultants, a consultant working with the city of Arcata, as well as the county of Humboldt and the city of Eureka, on developing that franchise agreement language that meets industry standards. And the CPA working with the city of Arcata, I should note, is also working with the county of Humboldt and the city of Eureka, and I believe also the city of Fortuna.
Process. No, just kidding. Because I know there's some folks here that also wish to comment on this. So let's do questions first and anything to clarify, and then we'll take it out to the public, and then we can come back and have our discussion about prioritization. So I'll turn it over to the council for questions.
I guess a clarifying question for me is, how often do we revisit these franchise agreements? Because some of my rankings have to, are dependent on like maybe revisiting this before 2025.
The current franchise agreement goes out until 2029. So on an actual, there are a couple of ways. To do a full new franchise would typically go at that date of potential expiration. Our current franchise also had some date certain timeframes for us to look in and recalc rates, make sure that the assumptions that we created in those models were coming through, and to relook at any additional services that the council would like. I mean, the city council can initiate a discussion with their franchise hauler at any time to either add or take away services, and we can go into that negotiation process. but a real full analysis would typically come up either at time certain that we put in that franchise or at the end of the agreement.
Sure. So because a lot of my thinking is about, all right, this frequency of pickup, I think that we make a lot of talk about reducing and reusing and really encouraging people to not create waste, right? And then we've got a lot of sticks, but we don't have a lot of carrots. And I feel like allowing, people to continue these less frequent things is definitely a carrot. However, once 2025 hits and we have to pick up weekly organic waste, then obviously that's a whole different story. Does that make sense?
Sure, and I wanted to just make quick note that in that similar line of thinking, we are working with our consultant to incorporate into a new franchise agreement performance standards for diversion, which is a common industry standard. And so that could be another mechanism for trying to incentivize both the haulers and the community base to continue to divert their solid waste away from the garbage and into either recycling or green waste. So just wanted to speak to that. That wasn't something in this presentation because it's not a program or service per se, but it is a standard that we're looking at through that lens of wanting to increase diversion as much as possible.
Sure. So things that, are really important, I think, to Arcata is to, continue to be able to use the services of local worm guy and full cycle compost. So I think that that's definitely something that's important. Also, the caddies, I think that's just honestly the least we can do is give people and then as far as these bulky item pickups and the multifamily bulky pickups, it's my understanding that the city picks them up, but then Recology still has to come get them from us. So it's kind of like something that Recology is sort of doing anyway, so we might as well just let them do the whole thing. Is that correct? All right. And then, great. And then I love, the community cleanups, and I love education and outreach. I think that that's something that we've discussed at HWMA meetings, and maybe Director Eric Keller-Heckman can back me up on this, but there is, a fee that HWMA in the budget has set aside for these cleanups and also for education and outreach. So I would love for us to work with HWMA to figure out how big of a piece of the pie we'll get for these extra community cleanup funds and kind of what the outreach will look like, so the onus doesn't have to be all on us. It can be more of a regional approach.
I wanted to
was there a question that I didn't want to cut you off. No, okay, beautiful. One of my questions kind of goes along with yours, but it kind of seems maybe unrealistic or too much oversight to be able to manage. But in addition to, community compost haulers that we use locally here in Arcata, I mean, I know a lot of people home compost as well, and, enjoy having that not only because it's good for the environment and it helps divert waste, but also for their own gardens and their own use and purposes. So, I mean, is there a possibility of that being able to be incorporated in, or how would that work?
Sure. So the ordinance is our ordinance is currently structured where it does allow for backyard composting. However, all materials that are required to be composted per SB 1383 are not all compostable in a backyard container. So for example, meat, bones, that sort of thing. And so we could look at having a potential smaller size for curbside collection. We do currently offer discounted backyard compost bins at the city, and so we can continue that program. Residents certainly are encouraged to continue backyard composting. However, that wouldn't be in place of having a curbside collection service. And I just wanted to pause real quick and note, I referenced Director Keller-Heckman is here from HWMA. We also have Recology General Manager Linda Weiss and Operations Manager Frank Nelson here, so they can answer questions as needed as well. Just wanted to note that additional support resource.
And then my other main question, and you kind of might have gone over this, and maybe I was still reading something else, or one in one ear out the other. But so with this changeover with West Green no longer owning that business, I mean, how does, besides the decrease in the amount that they are going to be accepting, I mean, what other major changes do you see and do you feel like, from that direction, from that business's perspective, do they want to kind of continue this no cost community green waste? Is that something the business is interested in collaborating with the city, or what do you see with that, and how does that work?
Yeah, so currently Morris Logging is operating that contract that West Green Company used to have, and the city has a contract with HWMA for green waste processing, and then HWMA has that contract with Morris Logging. And so with Morris Logging taking over purchasing that business, they have a different business model, and also 2 locations. So their current location at Glendale, for a number of reasons, is better suited for their business to accept green waste at that location. It's the location where their scale is located, where there's a grinder. And so we have recognized that the change of green waste drop-off location has been an impact for Arcata residents. It's been for many years within city limits, right at the border of city limits, and it is now a little bit further away. We've been working with Director Eric at HWMA and have met multiple times with Morris Logging and trying to ascertain how we can move, into the future. Currently, the drop-off location, it will need to be at Glendale. We'll continue to look for other options. That's why, especially in our Emily's presentation, outlined if the council has interest in looking at what some other creative free drop-off for green waste could be. I would say, though, that it is city staff's recommendation to decrease the amount of free green waste per Arcata resident, and that is from looking at the reality of the cost impacts, since we pay for that free green waste drop-off from our franchise fee revenue. That was Morris Logging has the capacity to continue accepting that amount of material, but the city staff is recommending that for the reality of our budgets and the upcoming universal organics collection, that we may need to scale back our current free green waste drop-offs.
Great. Thank you, Emily. That's all the questions I have, and we'll continue down the line if you have any questions.
So I think I'm getting a little bit groggy here, and I apologize because you probably just said this, but because it's in Blue Lake, it's not as convenient. Is there is the cost contingent on how much it's used? Do we pay per use so that we can manage that budget somewhat, where we pay in one flat rate whether it's used or not?
Yeah, so we are invoiced by HWMA for the drop-offs, as they have the contract with Morris Logging. And we detailed that in October. The cost increased by 60% just for green waste processing. So we have already been, the city, when we look at our budgets, we've already been seeing that impact of higher cost. Also, having a scale at the new business location is giving pretty accurate estimates, while the city's free green waste drop-off is, we talk about it in terms of volume. It really, our contract is by weight. And so all of that to say is that we've been seeing the cost increases, for a while, and see what is more upcoming as well. So it is more of an impact to Arcata customers to drive to Glendale for that location, though.
Did that answer? We are charged basically by the pound.
Okay. Okay.
So what they showed in the slides here is that the reduction that we're recommending in the no cost drop would then still keep what we are estimating the overall cost within what you've allocated in your budget this year and what we're recommending in the budget next year. So
okay. And I'm looking at number 5, the bulky item pickup in the city right away. And, just where I live, there's this sign right there, plain as day. It says no dumping. And right underneath it is a large mattress and a large bulky item. So I hope that we can prioritize that. I know that, individual local composting is the most climate-friendly practice, and I'm hoping that we will continue to provide the earth machines. And I know personally, if I'm gonna, I'll still be paying that fee, but I still would like to do my personal composting or utilize Full Circle or the Worm Guy. And to clarify for the public though, they cannot opt out except for the local composting like the Worm Guy or Full Circle, at Full Cycle, sorry. Another business there. Sorry, lost it. So even though they're doing their own personal composting, they're gonna still be charged for that bin whether they use it or not. That's correct, right? They cannot opt out for that.
Yeah, they cannot opt out. Now, the bin, we anticipate, we haven't finalized the development, but we anticipate the bin to be a mixed green waste and food waste bin, organic. So, they could use it for some of both.
And just maybe not a question, but a statement, the community cleanups, in our community cleanup in February, we got 600 pounds of garbage off of the streets in Valley West. So I'm really hoping that we can continue doing that as well. And then of course, education and outreach, I feel like is essential for all of these other things to work. So, and I guess that's all I have to say.
So I'm just going to use anyway. So at my house, I happen to have the Worm Guy. I do not have green waste pickup. So I'm thinking at this point, I'm going to have to get a can for green waste. Whether we put anything in it or not is another question. And then that way, if anyone has a bone or chicken bones, they can put those in there in a plastic bag, or you don't put it in your, in something. I don't know how I'm going to be I have to think really basically about how we do it, because I have a whole system of what we're doing currently, and it's going to change it. And what do you do? Dump it in, or is it going to be in another bag, or?
Sure. So a couple things come to mind. One is the importance of education and outreach. I think that's a really good point. It's important that our community knows what they can do with what materials. At one point, I want to say about a year ago, a concept was having bagged food waste within a green waste bin. However, that is not something that is manifesting. It is still in process what will be developed in terms of how organics will be processed and hauled and collected. We anticipate that food waste and green waste will be combined. Just not in a bag, just all in one.
Just thrown in. Okay.
Yep, exactly. The food waste within green waste from the residential sector is quite insignificant overall, and so we don't foresee contamination issues being a potential. Using that example, if you have the local Worm Guy, under a potential model is you wouldn't need that third bin from Recology if you have a subscription with the local Worm Guy, if the council carves out that 10% market allocation for a community composter. You could potentially throw your green waste in with the local Worm Guy. You should be able to throw your green waste as well as your food waste into one bin. It would be potentially combined, but I do want to stress that the processing pieces themselves are still being worked through at the regional level, and HWMA has really been leading those efforts. And again, we have Director Keller-Heckman. So give me a wave, Eric, if you'd like to elaborate a little further. It looks like you would.
Good evening, Council. So my name is Eric Keller-Heckman. I'm the Executive Director for HWMA. And so Deputy Director Benvey touched on it pretty well, but we will, as of right now, the plan going forward regionally in the county is we will be handling food waste and green waste in two distinct streams. Commercial food waste will be source separated, so commercial food waste will be held outside of residential green waste, commercial green waste, and residential food waste. As Deputy Director Benvey said, residential food waste is incidental to the overall tonnage of food waste in the county. We really want to focus on commercial food waste. That is the largest piece of this pie. So that material will be collected separately. It will be run through a pre-processing unit at the Hawthorne Street Transfer Station, and it will be going to currently an out-of-county processor that is yet to be determined. The residential food waste, when that is rolled out, that will be included in your green waste, and we are still trying to figure out exactly how we are going to process that. And we will work with the franchise haulers and our jurisdictions to figure out the best way that fits for all our member agencies.
Hey, Eric, while you're up there.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, because I do use the worm guy. I have 3 residences, we all do that. But if I never throw bones in there or meat because it's whatever. So where do you want those to go?
So we will be rolling out education and outreach in concert with our jurisdictions when we find out who we are sending our material to and their feedstock requirements. So we've already distributed that RFP. We will be awarding that RFP in the coming months. And when we work with that out-of-county processor, we will know the exact feedstock material that they're looking for. We will tailor our operations at the Hawthorne Street Transfer Station to get them that feedstock, and we will work with our jurisdictions to ensure materials are placed in that bin that we can process for that needed feedstock.
So what I would like to ask you then, so I have 5 tenants that are residential tenants. They're downtown. We have a recycling bins. We have garbage. So do I need to get a green waste bin for them to throw their recyclables, their compost in? How's that going to work?
I would pass that question to staff, city staff. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Because I'm just thinking about that and how we do, one of the goals is to have more residents in our downtown areas and et cetera. And then how are we going to deal with that? Because there is no green waste. They don't have any green waste to speak of. Maybe flowers, they have dead flowers or something they throw in there.
I apologize. Could you repeat this particular example? I followed you after that, but I missed the very particular example.
So I have 5 units. They're downtown, over on the corner of 9th and H, and they're going to have to do composting somehow. They have garbage disposals now. We want them to stop using their garbage disposal. We want them to start using compost. So I don't have any green waste there, except occasionally, I'm sure they throw their dead flowers into the garbage. So I would need a bin for their dead flowers and their compost. Is that how it would work?
Under a Recology provided service, it would be 1 bin for all of those materials.
Okay. Well, for some people, I'm sure it's just a space requirement. It's definitely a space requirement for me. And to figure out a skinny bin, hopefully there's some small little, not enormous ones like the recycling bins. There's smaller ones that one can use. What happens to the commercial or the retail tenants? What's going to happen with them? They have a recycling bin. If they generate any food waste, like a store, let's say Plaza Design or the Garden Gate, if they generate food waste, what do they do with it? Take it home?
So under the provisions of SB 1383, commercial accounts or commercial uses would also need to have that 3rd bin for their organics.
My God.
It's also worth pointing out, I think that the common thought when we hear organics is food waste, but paper towels, for example, also fall into that organics material type. And again, harping back to the education and outreach, really helping residents and businesses understand what constitutes as organics, because a business might not think that they're generating enough organics to necessitate having service. However, the reality is they likely are when thinking about the whole definition of organics.
Yeah. Okay. So Alex, I think we're really getting into the weeds here.
I'm really concerned about I get really concerned about the weeds because right now I know.
But we're talking about but this is the franchise agreement. We'll get there once the agreement exists, and then Recology is going to help us figure out all of these specifics and how they're going to be implemented.
Because I know we have retailers now that have their recycling bin and their garbage bin in the back room, and they haul it out to the alley for use. And so that means they will have their green waste in their back room too and haul it out. I'm sorry, I don't mean to go that deep, but I get caught up in it because I'm thinking about how it's going to actually work.
Yeah, and I think it's important to just reiterate that this is state mandated. This is something we have to do, and we will get fined a lot of money if we don't comply. So there's that. Can I ask two more questions?
And then we'll public comment.
All right, cheers. While you're up there, can you speak a little bit about that fund we have for community cleanup situations, and also kind of a brief plan, if there is any, for HWMA's education and outreach component?
Yeah, absolutely. So the illegal dumping and disposal cleanup fund, member agencies would know it as the 901 fund account. It is utilized to offset the costs for in-jurisdiction cleanups of illegally dumped materials. So if a jurisdiction does a cleanup on public property, they can make that cleanup happen, whether it's with volunteers, franchise haulers, city staff. They bring it to the authority. They can dump that at no charge. That dump spends down the funding level that we have annually for the illegal dumping and disposal. So historically, it's been around 40,000. This year, HWMA increased that to 54,000 because for 3 years in a row, we have overspent that fund. That fund is currently, right now, as it sits, completely spent for this fiscal year as well. So that is really a opportunity for jurisdictions to be able to clean up things and have HWMA offset a little bit of those costs. The education and outreach component, if you're talking about illegal dumping and disposal, just in general. Okay, so HWMA for a very long time has, in my opinion, done a very poor job of educating not only the public, but our member agencies and their jurisdiction staff on what we do, the services that we offer, and how we can help them manage waste. We will be bringing back a programs analyst that will focus solely on our social media presence, our education and outreach to residents, jurisdictions, member agency staff as well. Their entire job will be trying to do a better job of educating residents of the services that we have and intercommunication with our member agencies to try and get a better ecosystem of HWMA being involved with each jurisdiction's waste management.
Thank you so much, Eric.
Yep.
So at this point, I would like to open it up for public comment, just so we can hear from the public and see what they have to say before we go into prioritizing some of these items that are before us here. So if you are a member of the public and you would like to comment on this item, you will have 3 minutes, and you should make your way up to the podium, and we would love to hear from you.
Okay, hello, City Council and E&E, and I appreciate all the work you've been doing on this. Except I'm quite disappointed in our state legislature and our governor for this. There's a whole lot of people in Arcata and around that have been putting in a lot of time and effort over the past decades to get our waste stream down to almost nothing. I do not contribute green waste. I compost. I have chickens that eat, the meat and stuff like that. I have dogs that eat the bone scraps. All this, everything that I can compost goes in my garden. And it's really sad that there is no option for us, that we're mandated to do something that we don't need to do. And so that's a real disappointment. And another thing, it seems like, based upon what the gentleman from the Waste Management Authority said, the food scraps are going to go as food stock to be processed. Is probably going to go for animal feed, like pig feed or something. And I'm wondering about all those folks that I know that go around collecting food waste from restaurants, cook it up, and then feed it to their pigs. So now they're going to have to go and buy the plastic bags full of feed and stuff like that. And so that's a thing that some people are going to be missing out on. And also, if you only produce this much per week and you have a big truck coming around, how in the hell what does that mean for climate change? burning all that diesel to pick up a little bit? So you're going to have people going around in pickup trucks? I mean, or climbing out, bending down, or you can have the little tweezers come out and dump it in the back, just like you have the big ones coming out to dump, you know, our garbage bins now. So, I don't know. It just seems like this is insane. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think the aspect of the staff saying that they wanted to reduce the amount of dumpings is very disappointing, and it's not going to save money. There's a lot of people that do larger cuttings. They go to the green waste, they dump it. You know, now you're going to ask them to like chop it all up into tiny little bits and put it into the bin. Your program that you have going right now is very successful. I've been to the green waste lots of times, and people are, you know, pulling out larger branches from their pickup trucks. And I have a prediction probably what's going to happen if you actually reduce the number of loads that households can take. You're going to find out in the Arcata bottoms more dumpings, more illegal dumpings out there, and there's a lot out there. So it isn't going to save you money, it's going to cost you, because someone's going to have to clean that mess up. And it's not just organics too, it's recyclable material, it's dumping. And this is the other aspect that I brought this up to the council numerous times, and I'm just waiting for environmental services to address this, that we already have a program with recycling, and I've read at least 7 articles in the New York Times, PBS NewsHour. So what, with our existing recycling program, how much of the plastic is actually being recycled? Because the last article I read, it's less than 10%. It's like 8%, 9%. So let's get a report from these folks on what's happening with our existing program. What about the cardboard? According to the PBS NewsHour, if 1% of the contamination that pops into those 2-ton bales, they're rejected. All of this was going to China up to 2019, and then they cut us off. And since then, it's been a big mess. I'm not picking up on just Arcata. This was presented nationwide, and we stockpile all this recyclable that's not being bought, and then it ends up at the dump. So let's get a report on exactly what's happening in this city, and not, you know, well, we heard a little bit there's more contamination happening, and that contamination means that there needs to be more education. And so that's what's totally lacking here. I don't see any effort in the education standpoint of what's going on right now with the recycling problem. I mean, there's apartment buildings across the street. They pick up a bin. There's like peanuts, styrofoam that are in there. They're just like thousands of them go all over the neighborhood. I mean, there's nobody like taking a very hard look at this and trying to improve this. Plastic is all over our environment. It's in our wetlands, it's in our oceans. It's a major, major issue. So we need to like know exactly what's happening in the city now with our existing recycling. And organic is going to be even more complicated, because now you're going to try to educate people to keep the food waste separate for the green waste. When you go to the green waste, they don't even want the food waste. That's how you break the rules if you bring food waste over there.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Isaac West. I'm with Full Cycle Compost. Many of you know us well, but as a reminder, we're a bicycle-powered worker-owned cooperative. We collect curbside food scraps, and we also have a drop-off program here in Arcata. We basically do a very small version of what Recology does, only on bicycles, specifically for organic waste. We have 6 worker owners here, and one of us is on Zoom as well. And we provide service for over 100 residential homes in Arcata, and we also have about 20 drop-off customers that choose that model because it's less expensive. And we provide service to 4 schools who we also do educational programs with, and we service the area's largest nonprofit healthcare provider, Open Door. And our community composting program builds local soil in partnership with our City of Arcata's Bayside Park Farm, the Redwood Coast Montessori High School Garden, the community high school, community garden, Fuente Nueva Charter School, Centro de Pueblo, Jardín Sanctuario, and the Jacob Creek Land Trust. So we're trying to build this regional distributed network of partnerships and community building that involves a non-emissions way to haul, compost, and process it. And then we in turn take that compost and build local soil. And we saw SB 1383 coming, and so we decided this would be a good time to form this. And we really appreciate the city's involvement with us and saying, hey, look, we're having these meetings. We want to keep you in the loop. We really appreciate that. And I'm seeing, okay, you have a state mandate that you need to meet, and we want to keep everybody happy. We need to keep backyard composters happy. We want to keep residents happy with rate fees. Okay, what's the solution? I'm imagining perhaps you have a website portal where people can go and submit proof of composting. Now, I'm hearing just now that, okay, we have to, the law says everybody has to do curbside. So if that's the case, maybe this won't work. But my original idea is you have the website portal and people can submit proof that they are either a receipt from Full Cycle Compost, a receipt from Recology, a receipt from the local worm guy, or pictures of their backyard composting system followed by an inspection. And I might hint that maybe the inspectors could ride bicycles to where they're going just to use less cars. Like, you know, it's an easy opportunity for things like that. And so to have, you know, you can show the state, look, we are composting, but it allows all the backyard composters to keep their soil, you know, in Humboldt County. It allows, you know, y'all to show that you are having everybody, single person in Arcata in compliance. So that's a solution that I would propose, is just a simple website portal where people can submit proof. You know, under the current assumption that, as we understand it, the model that staff is presenting to council tonight means that residents who subscribe to Full Cycle Compost and any other local authorized community compost hauler for curbside collection would not have to pay for Recology. So people don't have to double pay. And that is really important, and we really appreciate. We only are about 1% of Arcata's business, so yeah. You know,
You got
don't
some
think
of the
we will
rest of
affect
the crew
franchise
there if they
agreement.
want to finish off your comment. I don't know.
Sure.
If one of them wants to come up and talk and or add on the rest of what you got written down there. We love to hear from you guys because you made the trip out here. So
We appreciate it. Basically, we don't think we will affect the franchise agreement. This 10% threshold makes quite a bit of sense. You know, in tonnage by weight, we currently estimate they're only about 1% of the tonnage. You know, Lloyd might be 2%, 3%. I don't actually know what his tonnage is, but 10% should allow us to at least double or triple our business without realistically hitting that cap. So I think that this 10% threshold is a pretty good way to quantify, look, we are not a fiscal threat to Recology's business model whatsoever. So we can operate without impacting them. They can operate without impacting us. People in Arcata can make value-driven decisions about, okay, do I want to pay more likely to support, I don't know what their rates are going to be, to support a business that is not driving emissions, is keeping local soil, that's promoting community partnerships, or do I want to pay less for a standard thing? And that at least everyone has access to those options and can take the cheaper choice, Recology, or they can spend more and work with us, and everybody gets to be happy with that. So I think, you know, that's a way we can please everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Joanne McGarry. I'm an old person in Arcata. I spoke about complicated things, and this is exactly what I'm talking about. We have a really complicated thing going on here. The region and all the municipalities in the county hired a consultant called Edgar Associates. I don't know how much money from Arcata went into that consultant, but what is being proposed is so complicated and not at all climate friendly, in my opinion. And if it is climate friendly, show me proof that it is. But getting back to me and my oldness, I'm a tenant. I'm trying to keep my own bills down on a fixed income with my electricity, my gas, my water, and my garbage. I compost with a neighborhood compost structure that I actually set up with people in the Creamery District, getting some of those backyard compost bins. If my landlord, who's a great person, landlady, if they have to pay more for this organic waste, it's going to come in to me too, in terms of increased rent. I can't, this is crazy. I don't want my compost to go anywhere else. I want my food waste to go in the neighborhood that's feeding the gardens, and I don't want this nonsense of driving organic food waste out of county in a truck. We should have been automatically, when this went into effect, getting a biodigester and industrial compost sites in Humboldt County. We are so backwards. We are so backwards in this. This is really a bad, complicated thing that we're doing that's going to be costly in so many ways. And it's going to really affect, in an equity sense, people like me who have to pay more because we don't want to do what they want to do, because we want to compost our own stuff and take care of our own food waste, but we're going to be forced to do this. This is wrong.
All right, do we have any more in-person public comment before we move to Zoom? All right, anybody on Zoom?
All right, our first online comment is from Tobin. Go ahead, Tobin.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for taking our comments. Isaac said most of what I wanted to say. I'm also a worker owner at Full Cycle Compost. And having nothing to do with well, first I'd just like to say thank you to everybody who's been working on this and creating the carve out for local business. So that's just beautiful and we really appreciate it. So my comments don't have anything to do with that. I just am a little bit concerned about low-income residents and folks who are doing backyard composting and future for community composting. We do our work because we love composting and what it does for the earth and what it does for our community, and that means all forms of composting, not just curbside pickup. And we actually believe that backyard composting and community composting are a better model than our own service, and certainly better than shipping food scraps out of town. Backyard composting and community composting keep our valuable nutrients in our local food web. But perhaps more importantly, a mandatory fee for organics collection may be really harmful to low-income residents who can't afford curbside service. And one could even argue that it would be a tax on people with fewer opportunities for earning income, with another 15% increase for composting in addition to the upcoming 15% rate increase. 30% could mean a lot for folks. So we would encourage the council and city staff to continue to seek feasible and enforceable solutions that include an opt-out for backyard composters and future community composting projects. And Isaac mentioned some ideas, just ways that we can track and, obviously you have to meet your metrics and show that composting is happening. But I would love to see more conversation happening about subsidized income for low-income residents, for people who compost their own materials, or actually setting up community composting so that folks can haul their own compost to a community composting site and avoid paying the fee altogether. So let's all work together to protect our local food web and support our low-income residents. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tobin. You're getting applause from your crew. Okay.
All right.
Any more online comments?
Yeah, our next online speaker is Kevin. Go ahead, Kevin.
Hi, I'd like to know, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, good. I'd like to know if there will be any exemptions for commercial farms that operate in the city of Arcata. We use 100% of our green and food waste as it goes back into the farm soil. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anybody else on Zoom waiting to comment?
We do. Our next speaker is, jumped up on me. Patricia, go ahead, Patricia. Go ahead,
Me?
Patricia. Yep.
All right. Yeah, I know this is coming from the state, and you're kind of trying to figure out exactly how this is going to work. I really feel for the small local businesses that center around composting our waste, and of course, the backyard composters. You've heard from me before on, my views on composting. I come from a long, many years of composting. and a family that was really, you know, really, really strongly, oh, what do I want to say? Anyways, they really, really strongly encouraged everybody to compost. And so, yeah, if we could have an opt-out for some of those people that use the small businesses and our backyard composters, and as Kevin just mentioned, you know, that the smaller farms are an issue as well. I've always viewed my compost as gold. I'd like to keep it in my hands and not have to pay to have my composting scraps hauled way, like hundreds of miles away. And so on that note, yeah, if that it could be worked out somehow, that would be great. And you know, my dad had one wish before he died, and that his ashes go in the compost pile, which is a very true story. So yeah, that's how strongly people really, really believe in what they're doing and composting their food scraps. So thank you for all your time in putting this together, and hopefully the state, you can work a solution out with the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia.
All right, we have no other online comments.
Okay, no other online comments at this point. So, yes, please go right ahead.
So, yes, I feel this, right? I'm super mad that this is an unfunded state mandate. I'm mad at the CPUC. I'm mad at everybody that's raising all these rates. We're talking about franchise agreements right now, and I feel like there's going to be a lot of time, hopefully, for discussion about wrapping our heads around what SB 1383 is going to look like in the future. And I really, I hope we can find a solution. I hear how it's going to affect low-income BIPOC people. I would hope that we can agendize some way to think about subsidizing something maybe on the budget, because it is, I mean, I wish we could do that for power bills too, but anyway, yeah, so here we are. So are we ranking now?
Yeah, we can rank the priorities, but I was gonna give you a little plug here because I don't know, maybe you need some more emails or phone calls probably, but Meredith is our representative to HWMA too from this board, and represents Arcata on that board as well. And so I know that you are fighting the good fight out there and working with HWMA and our other municipalities to make sure that, you know, the way that this rolls out in Humboldt County is as fair as possible, as easy as possible. But again, yeah, it is the state mandate that we are all tied to. But if we've heard anything tonight, it is the importance for our community, for this community composting, and the ability to kind of keep doing what people in Arcata have always enjoyed doing. So yes, we are going to kind of go through this prioritization, and I just wanted to see what do you guys think is the easiest way for us to do this? Maybe we can just go down the line and just kind of go through each one of those things and say where we fall. I know it's hard because I think they're all pretty important, but we can start down here with Meredith, and we'll go down the line and just kind of see where we lie with those, and we can update it in real time. You do have an editable one, so perfect. Okay.
Before I start, I will address this whole idea of contamination with recyclables that Mr. Daggett brought up. It is, I mean, it's horrible. You have like your whole recycling bin, and then you throw in like a pizza box that has cheese on it, and then all of a sudden like your whole bin is contaminated. So, you know, just something else to be aware of. Because, yeah. All right. So this is like trying to choose like a favorite child or a least favorite child. I don't know, like, so I don't know. I guess I'll start with, now you made me start. All right. Well, I wouldn't go that far. But, okay, so things that are high priorities for me, I guess I'll start with that, are the community compost hauling, the caddies, and then I guess for now, the ability to kind of navigate the frequency that you want your pickup until it becomes mandated, that's something that has to be every week with organics. Things that are like high middle for me are the the pickups, the bulky item pickup and the multifamily. Bulky pickups just because I feel like, look around, right? There's stuff beep all over the place, and it's an eyesore. And then, the community cleanup dumpsters and education and outreach, they're so important, but I really think there's an opportunity for us here to work with HWMA to find a plan for us to do that maybe doesn't have to be built into this franchise agreement. So I think, the no-cost community greenway services. I don't know, can we just put it medium? All right.
Oh yeah, is green waste isn't on there? Okay. Okay. Not on this one. So I think I'm not necessarily understanding the frequency of pickups. So could you just explain that one more time? I understand some people only get pickups once a month or less often than weekly. And so, but there ultimately will be a requirement where when green waste is implemented, we will have to pick at least that can up weekly. So, but we could still have the other ones be less often, just for me, because you rated it high, but I just feel like it's not that important. But maybe I just have a different view on it, but maybe give me a little more background.
Yeah, and the frequency of pickups really does address just two levels of service that we currently have, and it's the monthly and the bi-monthly. And when we negotiated the franchise agreement that we're currently operating under, of course, from the exact same sentiment that you heard tonight, low, and moving towards zero waste is a very important value for a lot of people in Arcata. Truth be told, and maybe I shouldn't say this out loud, but the state has always required weekly collection of purchasable waste, right? So having a level of service that's below every 7 days a week does already not comport well with state law. That being said, the level of oversight and scrutiny as we move into the organics and the weekly collection and our need to report puts us in a different, I'd say, category where we are going to need to provide that level of service on a weekly basis. So I think what came to this is that we looked at the mix of accounts right now, and there are a couple hundred people, but out of close to 5,000 customers that are on this, and perhaps you would like Recology to speak to this. The cost incorporated to have this service in our system is unusually high for the service because the required billing and adjustments that they need to make to track those specific accounts that only come up once a month or once every other month, even though they're on that route every week. So, it's a hard call because it incentivizes lower waste. So trying to figure out ways to build that in a way that spreads the cost most equitably around the community is the challenge here.
Yeah, so I guess on that one, I would be in medium, but I just, for me in my mind, it just kind of seems, and maybe this is a Recology question or what, but that it doesn't make sense, because if we're going to be reducing what's going into the landfill, we're reducing our trash naturally, so we'd probably want that picked up less for, things like plastics and just, those things that cannot be composted. But if we're composting more, then that makes sense for that to get picked up weekly, because we're filling up those bins and we're using them. But by, naturally, if those bins are becoming more full, then the other bins should, maybe we just get smaller bins that are picked up more frequently, and to have that smaller bin size, to have, because still the minimum size of bin is actually, a pretty large bin, and I barely fill that one up weekly too. And so, and that's something that we can deal with down the line.
I like a small bin. That's a good idea.
Smaller trash bins and, compost bins that can be picked up. So that one's kind of medium for me. High to super high community compost hauling. And I would also, just like to see some discussion and possibility for some of these exemptions, for being able to prove you're at-home composting or contracting with one of these local compost haulers that we have. I really do like the idea of, having a way that we can just easily upload this information to the city, so it's not, now we have OpenGov, right? Maybe that could happen through that, to be able to, show your receipt from Full Cycle, or, show your, come have our inspector come inspect your bin. And especially if you buy one of the reduced bins through the city, they already know that you have it and that it's being, used in operation. So I do see some ways, to work through that. Kitchen caddies, that's pretty medium. I think maybe to build in a way that, again, to kind of pick up that equity piece, to maybe subsidize those and say, if you are at a certain income level, yeah, you can get one for free, but I'm fine buying one. That I'm not bothered by it. So, and then I think bulky item pickup is high priority. I think that's high. And then medium for the next one, medium for the cleanup. And then, I would just say medium for the rest of them, just, and to kind of agree with what Meredith said here about the education outreach and the community cleanup and stuff, that there is opportunity for collaboration with HWMA for that, and being able to fund that through HWMA and work with them. I see that opportunity. And then, with the green waste, I think we should continue that for sure. But I do, see the need and understand the city's budget constraints with wanting to somewhat reduce the amount that is allowable. So that's where I fall. So sorry, no low importance. I'm a high priority person, I guess. Okay.
So I'm going to start with the two items that I have the lowest priority, which is the no-cost organics kitchen caddies and the multifamily bulky items. And to piggyback on what Sarah said, is that maybe there could be some subsidization for those who can qualify, but the rest of us should be paying for it. If I could, when I moved here 30 years ago, everybody composted, everybody was about the environment, and education and outreach was excellent. And so it's sad to me, because all the education and outreach that I got mostly was from 30 years ago. So I'm really, if I could give that an extra high, education and outreach, I think, is the most important. The second most important for me would be to do the community compost hauling. And even though I got their name incorrect, they are a part of Cooperation Humboldt, and I was with Cooperation Humboldt, and I absolutely love what they do. And so I would put that also as the highest priority. I wish that we could, in addition to letting these two companies or organizations opt out, that we could create some kind of opt out for backyard composters. I feel like we have been doing the right thing all along, and we shouldn't be penalized for being environmentally conscious and ahead of the game forever and ever. I also would like to see the community, no-cost community green waste service up there, as pointed out by Gregory Daggett. We're going to end up paying for that anyway, and it's going to cost a whole lot more, and it's going to look really bad. So we might as well just be proactive and pay for it. And with regards to money, I can't put a price tag on my environment and climate. So if that means we have to pay a little bit more, I think that's the most important thing. Bulky item pickup in the city right away, high priority, absolutely. Community cleanup dumpsters, gotta have them. Otherwise, we're gonna be penalizing these volunteers who create all of this energy and picking up and cleaning up their community, their neighborhood. So I'm hoping that we can keep that as a high priority and keep Arcata, or work on keeping Arcata clean and wonderful place, which is the reason we all moved here. So I think I covered all 8. 2 of them I did extremely low, and the others were high. Oh, did I not do frequency of pickup? I think that we should continue frequency of pickup, and that was the little segue of cost. If it does cost us more money, I think it's important that we still have people do the right thing. And so if they're creating less garbage, then they should pay less. And that's the carrot, to keep people doing the right thing. Sometimes we have to hit people in the pocketbook. So I think that for the frequency, it should cost the individual less, and if the city has to maybe pick up the tab to do a little extra work and staff time so that they have to go through and say who's doing it bi-monthly or who's doing it every week, then that's what we do. Because ideally, it would be great if all of us were only doing it, you know, every other week. And so that's where I stand on that. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm trying to figure out what to do. I can tell you education and outreach is a high one for me right off the bat, and that's where I would go. So thinking about it, it's going to have to be a weekly pickup. But I'm trying to figure out what to do. You know, I'm thinking about the number of tenants I have that are retail and et cetera, and they're all within a block. But we're all going to have to pay separately. So every store will have to pay their fair share. And I just don't think it's the best way to go. I think something more collective, especially, you know, I'm thinking about I don't know. I'm going to get someone, I'm going to get you guys, or I'm going to get the worm guys, and I'm going to try to figure out how to deal with all my tenants so I can get them out of the system of having to have a green waste can in the back room with their other 2 cans. Because who wants to keep their green waste can in the back room where you're throwing food into it for a week? It starts to smell. So I'm going to have to figure out something, and I will. And I will be I'm going to pull my tenants together and figure out how to do it. So I don't know what it's going to look like, but it'll look like something. So community compost, you know, I'm using the worm guy. I've only used them for, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years so far. And so I really like, I don't like caddies because wouldn't want one. I don't use one. I have another system I use, and it makes me go out to my compost bin all the time because of the way I do it. And I don't accumulate in the kitchen, so I don't have a smell. And I remember back in the 70s, the neighborhoods would get together and they would all come together and pay for a dumpster, and they would do a dumpster cleanup in the neighborhood. They would really watch that dumpster so people in other neighborhoods wouldn't come and fill it up. And they would do it on a certain time frame, so it came, got filled, and left. And that was a good idea. But I do know that we need to definitely have the bulky items. I know it doesn't work well because people don't call about it or have it happen. They just leave it on the corners. And I'd like to see us definitely have all the cleanup of the stuff left on the corners, whichever number that is on here. And so I have multifamily, I think I would put in the middle. This is really hard for me to see way over here. So I know, but that's even worse. So because it's so far away. I went and got my eyes checked, and now I have to get, even though I have cataract surgery, I'm going to have other glasses, so it's hard. So bulky items, I would say I would make that medium. Caddies in your kitchen, no. Community compost hauling, I would like to really use the system I'm using. If we're going to have this green waste can, it's going to have to be on a weekly basis. And I think it's really important for us to continue to figure out how to do the green waste drop-off. But I've been contacted by gardeners now that they have to go all the way out to Glendale to drop off, the amount of time it takes. And so I'm thinking, I wonder in some of those issues if a green waste can could actually handle all the grass cuttings, et cetera, that the gardeners are doing. I don't know. That's something I think we could ask some of our gardeners. We have a lot in Arcata. You see them driving around all the time, and maybe we could get some of them together and figure out how they could work with their clientele in a better way.
I have asked a couple just as a point of reference, and they said for some clients that actually would work really well, and obviously for others and certain times a year they're still going to be making runs. So it could be a mix.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that would be, yes, from that point of view. So, well, I did say a high for you. If you're going to have green waste, if you're going to have garbage in your food garbage in a can, you have to pick it up every week. So that's high for me. Otherwise, you have rats and, I mean, it's bad enough. And, you know, I have an alley and I have garbage across the way from campground, and, you know, it's, the doors don't close right, and it's just, oh my God. Anyway, I will figure it out somehow.
So green waste was a high one for you, right? That sounds like that. Okay, and then community cleanup dumpsters, how do you feel? That's the last one we missed, I think.
Well, I would say medium on that, and where you get the community or a neighborhood together and they all do it at the same time.
Okay, great. All right, so you have item 1 under this recommendation, which is to provide
Can I do a quick
prioritization
clarification?
of potential or new or solid waste. And then, yes, let's have.
I just want to make sure I understand the community cleanup dumpsters. I interpreted that of like when we were doing these cleanups as volunteers. So like Northtown had a weekly or a monthly cleanup. Valley West does it. We do it weekly and monthly, as opposed to neighborhoods just dumping their garbage in. This is street garbage to clean up the streets to assist the city, not individual residents. Is that correct? Okay, thank you.
Oh, so it's not getting neighborhoods together and doing it. It's just street garbage.
Yes.
Well,
So-
that's very high for me, street garbage, to get all these things that I see everywhere.
And what this would specifically fund is the cost of Recology dropping the dumpster, picking the dumpster up, as well as the disposal costs of the contents of that dumpster.
So if I'm correct, we did the first part, we provided prioritization, and then we're going to authorize you to go into negotiations, and then all of this stuff is going to get tabulated, and you're going to go to them, and then you're going to come back to us, and we're going to see this again. Far out. All right, so then I would then like to make a motion to authorize the city manager to enter into sole source negotiations with Recology to meet SB 1383 requirements for curbside collections and hauling.
All right, thank you. We have a motion from Vice Mayor Matthews.
So I'll second it, but I want to talk on it. So let's say
And a
that
second
I'm
from Councilmember Stillman.
Oh,
Add it to the record. No, it's there though. Okay, but go ahead.
I moved, but I can discuss the motion. Okay. So let's say that, is there going to be a way to opt out? Yeah, there'll be a way to opt out. That's what I'm going to have to figure out, is the way to opt out.
It's all going to come back to us
Okay.
Yeah.
before anything's finalized, and we can edit it again.
Yeah, and then
If
more
I
of those
could-
questions.
If I could quickly, we went through the exact same conversation, Councilmember Stillman, when we went into recycling and additional bins at every single.
And it's been not good.
Well, and we did on many occasions, we came up with a solution, and, you know, be Recology doing it or Arcata Garbage at the time, where people did have some shared bins, and multifamily is a really good example of that. You know, they might have a 2-yard dumpster that they're using for garbage, and then it was just however many recycling bins they needed. Maybe they needed 2, maybe they needed 10, that number could fluctuate. So, I mean, I think we can work on some of these individual tight areas, especially in the downtown, and figure out how they might each pay for a portion of service, but there could be some shared bins. If they can work it out, it can be a challenge, as you know.
Well, I do. I remember exactly how recycling has gone in Arcata from over the years of how it's been and where it ends up now, just in one dumpster.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. So we're going to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Alex, do we get you? Motion carries. Unanimous. Okay. I just didn't see your mic on. All right.
Thanks,
So-
Eloise.
Yes, and thank you folks for being
And
here.
thanks, Eric and
thank you
Linda. Thank you.
Okay. I think, do we need to take a quick break? Do people want to take a 5-minute? You guys want to take? Okay. We are going to take a quick 5-minute break, and then we'll be back for our final item. All right, folks, we are back for item C, which is to review and accept the general plan annual progress report and adopt resolution number 223-53, forwarding the report to the state agencies. So may we have a staff report from Community Development Director David Loya.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Schaefer and Council. Tonight we're asking you to adopt resolution number 223-53, which would accept the City of Arcata's report on its general plan progress. This is a progress report that's required by the state annually for the city to report on how it's meeting its objectives in the general plan. This is the third one, I believe, that we've done, and this is the third format. We're still trying to work out the best format. And I think we've got some great ideas for next year, but I'll just focus real quick on a little bit of the content, moving to, in particular, the housing element report, which has its own specific reporting, but we wanted to include it in here because we were so pleased and impressed with how well the City of Arcata is doing. If you look on packet page 126, under section 2, there's a housing element reporting requirements, and it talks about some of the requirements there, but I wanted to focus your attention on the table. If you look in the second heading, RENA allocation by income level, you'll see that we're required to provide the options or opportunities for housing to be produced in a total of 610 units between 2019 and 2027. And if you look over in the last column, the total remaining column there, you can see that we only have 209 remaining. So we've produced quite a bit of housing in the first couple of years of our housing element period. It's an 8-year period. And if you look in the column just before that, total units to date all years, it gives you the rundown, the breakdown based on income levels. And so you can see that we've done quite a bit of lower income housing for the community. And we've also been working on some of the moderate income. Most of those moderate income units are accessory dwelling units.
What did you say? Some of those units, could you say the other word?
Yeah, most of the moderate income housing that we've produced are accessory dwelling units.
Oh, thank you.
So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have about the remainder of the report. You'll see that within the different subject areas, we listed projects or programs that we've implemented to address different aspects of the general plan, and I'd be happy to go into any of those, but I won't spend any more time on that now.
Okay, yeah, let's open it up for questions.
So you said questions for the remainder report. Can we still ask questions about the housing element?
Yeah, you can ask any questions you'd like.
Okay, great. Yeah, I am beaming and really proud of Arcata. Unlike so many cities, we're on our way to meeting our numbers. We're on track for this cycle. It's exciting that we're almost already 50% complete in the extremely low, very low, the Westwood Garden Apartments. I'm assuming we'll meet our numbers. There's 102 towards our moderate number. And we were needing, looks like if we do count those, then we're actually like 20 units over because we only needed 82. Does that sound about right?
Westwood Gardens, I'm not sure which categories that would fit into.
Yeah, the 102 units at Westwood Garden that they're building right now, that will not count towards moderate?
I can't say for sure what the income level, I mean, that's a good assumption.
Okay.
But we have to evaluate the project.
So
I don't want to answer just off the cuff. We have to evaluate,
okay. Well,
evaluate the rents.
Right. So then pretty much that leaves us above moderate, which we are woefully behind. We need 262 and we've completed, I think, 53, leaving 209 to complete by 2027. So we got about 4 years. I am wondering, the 241 units that are the Cal Poly Humboldt, normally we could not count their housing, but this is off campus. And my understanding is that we've really not done this kind of housing before. So, I mean, can you make a guess perhaps? I mean, can we use those in our numbers?
So are you talking about the 1,000 units they plan to
The
build?
241 units for the Craftsman Mall.
But that's going to be closer to
Well, no, it's
1,000.
900 students, but it's 241 units, if I'm not mistaken.
No, we can't count the student housing, even though it's off campus. It
Even
doesn't-
though,
yeah, it
okay,
doesn't count.
so then we, okay. I'm also concerned, I mean, it looks great, or, you know, we're getting there for rentals, and we're going to be doing more in the Gateway Area Plan. I am concerned about the ratio of rentals versus home ownership opportunities. I think that's something very important to our community. And I'm just wondering if we might create more home opportunities, not only in the Gateway, but in all of the areas of opportunity that have been identified. You know, we talked about doing possible, you know, task forces and other ways to find how we can do that. And I'm just wondering where are we at with that? Are we giving up on that home ownership opportunities? Are we gonna somehow incentivize to make that? What can we do?
Yeah, no, that's, you know, a clear goal of the city council for as long as I've worked here is to increase home ownership opportunities. And there's you know, clear incentives in the Gateway Area Plan for projects that will, you know, produce ownership. We anticipate using those same models in other infill opportunity zones to try and incentivize the development of ownership opportunities, you know, condos or townhouses. But, you know, the reality is that the city doesn't build the housing. The city provides opportunities and incentives for the housing, and so we can't really drive that. One of the sort of underlying assumptions around the infill developments, whether they're in the Gateway or in these other opportunity zones that we're focusing on, is that they will, you know, provide, you know, initially, you know, housing that's more attractive to folks who are renting. And if a renter has the option of, you know, renting, you know, single-family home that's currently in the rental market, many of which are, you know, less than well-kept, versus a brand-new apartment, they'll be opting for brand-new apartments. And so part of the, you know, the increase in housing units that will come from infill will start to shift the market for those single-family homes that, you know, are currently wrapped up in the rental market. That's the theory. You know, there's no, you know, necessary connection between those two things, but I think it's a pretty likely outcome.
So I know, like in Windsong, there were, you know, we need home ownership opportunities for all income levels. And what was nice about Windsong is that Humboldt Housing had purchased some of those homes so that we could keep affordable housing ownership opportunities also on the table. And I talked to folks that live out there, and they're really happy. It would be great if somehow we could create something similar to that again. And also, I feel like we are woefully behind on our above moderate, and that's going to be those folks that are going to be, as Cal Poly Humboldt expands, you know, the professors, the staff, the teachers, our staff. So much of our staff can't afford or have no, they don't live in Arcata because there's no opportunity to do that. And I'm assuming, maybe I shouldn't, but if you are a professor at Cal Poly Humboldt or staff at City of Arcata, that you might like to have a home ownership opportunity as opposed to being a renter. And right now, we just don't have that.
So you're saying that we really
Anywhere
need
in
to
California.
encourage developers to build single-family houses and sell them, but where are we going to do that?
Or even condominiums, as you were
Yes.
talking about.
Well, I think condominiums or townhouse condominiums is a way to go, is one way to go. But I do think we have a belief in our community that condominiums are not a good thing to do. You know, I've been really interested in trying to get the housing group for CERT to think about bringing someone in that does condominiums over in Redding, Red Bluff, Sacramento, San Francisco, San Jose, you know, all over the place, to come in and talk to us about condominiums. Because I know that we have architects that believe that condominiums won't work in our area, and we have only down on K Street, we have an apartment complex that was turned into condominiums. They're all 2 bedrooms. And then when we're down on off of LK Wood, there is I think 7 of them, and those are condominiums. And as far as I know, we don't have any others.
So where I live, although it's not technically a condominium, it's
you're
a
in
plan.
condominiums.
Yeah, it's a planned unit development, but it's very much similar. And it was one of the ways that I had an opportunity to get into a home ownership opportunity. So yes, I agree.
But my thinking is that we need to be able to educate ourselves and to educate our community to understand this isn't horrible. Because everyone believes in 10 years, you know, if you're a contractor and you built it, in 10 years, you're gonna just be done under before it goes into the condominium. I could have misinformation, because my information comes from many years ago. And that's why I keep thinking, can't we get someone to come and talk to us?
So how could we get that on the agenda?
Or it could be on Zoom. And so I wish that, I've asked CERT Housing numerous times, and so maybe I have to find someone and ask them to come and do it.
Okay,
Great. This is
So,
about
yes, back
up to
to
now.
this.
So what we're talking about is reviewing what we've done in the past year up to now.
Yeah,
right?
we're driving you nuts, aren't we? Yes. You can say yes. We're
I mean,
driving
I
you
just think
nuts.
that it's important that we
But we're
talk about
looking
we're
at
supposed to
what
talk
we've
about,
done
yeah.
in the last year and then looking at the gaps and things that maybe we could do better.
No, and that's great, but that's not what we're tasked with right now. I mean, I feel like there's so many discussions that we're going to be having moving forward, and have them. That's great, but I just want to like circle back to what we're supposed to be doing, which is just, you know, saying, yes, this is a report and you did it, and we can move it on to the state, and that'll leave us ready to like talk about next year at a later time.
And so
Just in
with
case
that, I would move for resolution number 223-53 and to move that forward, because I think it's a great report.
Okay, so we have a motion to move the report forward. Yes, we will. We can have a motion and a second on the table before we take public comment.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Now I'm going to ask for public comment. So there we go. Do we have any public comment?
The one aspect of the annual report you had was on the wastewater treatment plant, phase 1. Phase 1, you actually tonight had a grant too that was connected to this. And this is like some of the most important issues that we're facing with the city. So we need to start spending some more time, and I'm surprised nobody's asking any questions about it. Last week I brought up the fact that Kimberly wasn't on the council, but back in October when you all approved of phase 1, you had a specific amount that was, I believe, about a little less than $54 million. There was also a built-in contract where they could raise it up to another $3 million, and it's, I believe, up to $62 million. So I'm really shocked that no one's actually, you know, asked why the increase. No one's asking that question. That's a lot of money, and it should be addressed, and nobody seems to care about all the millions of dollars. Now, I've asked the city, and they're like, don't worry about it, it's a grant. But grants are not free money. Grants are paid by the federal government or the state, and as you all know, that you should know, it's $33 trillion deficit with the federal government. And the next 2 weeks, we're going to find out whether we're going to hit that debt ceiling or we're going to default, and it's going to dramatically change things for spending. This will have an impact on also your pension fund too. And that's another reason why you should be asking more questions too. But what came out from our financial director, that you're going to take $5 million from the wastewater treatment funds to pay for the pension. And you also, the staff went to the Coastal Commission and have phase 2 of the plant facilities, phase 2, which, you know, basically that could be another $30-40 million. And you're taking money from that fund for the pension when we may need that money for phase 2, and nobody's asking any questions. Phase 1 went from a couple years ago of a quote of in the low 30s to $62 million. So what's phase 2 going to be? You know, that's out in the future. So why aren't you asking questions about all this? And this grant is related to your kind of speeding up the process with the Planning Commission. And you need that grant to be done, which some experts have written to me and said that that's going to take about a year and a half to get the answers. This is related to the update of the general plan. You need to know what the specifics of the results of the grant are to answer that. This has to do with your coastal element update. You need to have the answers to that grant that might be a year and a half out there. So there needs to be a lot more attention to this area.
Yes, thank you. Fred Wise. The question of bringing in experts for condos, I'm very much behind that. If I can help in any way, I would love to. Okay. There's a variety of facets of issues. I've been told by architects their insurance is about 3 times if they're designing condos. It's the practicality of condos is largely insurance and lending issues, not whether or not we want them. But I think it is possible, and I like to see it happen. It's something that the Planning Commission has spoken of again and again and again, and it just keeps falling through the cracks. It was something that Chair Julie said Elcock was after. In terms of the theory expressed by Director David Loya that renters that is, will choose a new apartment over an older single-family rental, I disagree with the premise. The hypothesis assumes that there is a fixed quantity of renters and they will select between A or B. In reality, I think there's an almost endless demand for rental units. Rents will go down when there's an oversupply of housing, and which I do not see happening in Arcata. There's another thing which I've been investigating are the landlords who own perhaps 2 or 3 or 4 rental houses who purchased them in, let's say, the 1980s or 1990s, including myself in this category. We're aging, we're going to be selling these houses, and I believe these houses will be taken off the rental market. They'll be purchased by people who want to live in them, and there'll be a decrease in single-family homes that are for rent that we'll be seeing over the next 5 years. Thanks.
Thank you, Fred. All right, do we have anybody online wishing to comment?
I see no online public comment.
Okay, so with that, there is no more public comment. We had a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 223-53 and forward this report to the state agencies. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Okay, that was 4 ayes, and that passes unanimously. And that now takes us to oral and written communications, item number 12 on our agenda tonight. The city appreciates public input, and this time is provided to address the council on items not on the agenda. As said before, please know that pursuant to the Brown Act, council cannot take action on items that are not listed on the posted agenda. At the end of oral communications, the council can respond to statements, and supported requests that require council action will be referred for a future agenda or referred to staff. You will be limited to 3 minutes. And so if you are wishing to comment, please line up behind the podium, or if you are on Zoom, please raise your Zoom hand, or if you're on the phone, press *9. All right.
Okay, our fire issue with the heights of our buildings, in this January, we heard from the fire department in here that basically spelled it out pretty clearly that nothing over 3 stories and height. So there needs to be the public is wanting to know what's going on with this issue because it's sort of been told, well, at the most, it's being discussed with the fire department, the fire district. So, I mean, I don't know, the public doesn't know whether there's anything going on this. So there seems to be this kind of like fairy tale thing that we're going for 7 stories and something very, very basic that the fire department was pretty serious about in their presentation. I mean, I'm assuming you all saw it online, because you weren't here. I mean, I think Alex was here, but you know, it's an issue that everybody can understand that, and it's not being addressed. So I like to understand what's going on in the process in that area. And the other one is just what I've been talking about as far as, you know, the grant and having the answer. There's no way that you can move forward with the gateway process without having to know whether it's a safe area to build, sea level rise. That's what that grant is all about. That's part of it. So, and I've talked to experts about it, and it's not an easy thing to just do. It's going to be a very extensive process for over maybe a year and a half, but maybe somebody on the city can comment on that, how long that's going to take. So how are you going to make these other decisions without that piece of evidence? You cannot you cannot do your due diligence and come up with any of this without that done. And I'm kind of surprised that it all of a sudden just popped up, because I was told that it actually started in the fall by somebody on staff. So apparently it hasn't, and it's just beginning now. So you know, you got to ask the question: how long is this going to take? Is it? I mean, and look at all the deadlines that you have. You have the Planning Commission, like, really on an accelerated pace to come up with, you know, information by July, and it's kind of getting a little embarrassing how quickly they're going over pretty serious topics, you know, limited to like 8 minutes, and then they're, you know, throwing it into the bike rack if they can't, you know, get it answered. There's no way they can. These subject matters are so intense and serious that other cities have spent, you know, months and months and months on the subject matter. You can't just come up with these quickie little things and just advance it. It's not doing due diligence. A lot of mistakes are going to be made, and you're going to have a lot of angry people out in the public once they find out about all this, because it's all hidden.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to amplify a little more about the meetings at the Creamery. It was the Creamery District. There's an evolution in this. The Planning Commission requested it about 6 months ago or more. The idea was that the Planning Commission would go to the Creamery, go to the Playhouse, somewhat as a gesture of goodwill and community outreach. It became clear that that was problematic in the sense of being able to Zoom and abide by the Brown Act. So then that morphed into the people who wanted to partake in the meeting coming here to the chambers here. And that was abandoned again in the interest of time and the accelerated schedule that they're on. And the idea was that staff would go to the Arcata Playhouse and people would meet with them there. The expectation of the participants is that it would be an open forum. What it was a very controlled forum on just a specific set of topics which was discussed. But the people did what they could do to kind of take over and talk about what they wanted to talk about. And that's those Post-it notes and graphics are what I posted the photos on arcata1.com. Director Lawyer is going to be making a presentation to the Planning Commission on Tuesday. I look forward to that. And probably the 40 or 50 people who participated also look forward to that. So it's not over, but it changed quite a bit from its original conception to what happened. Just wanted to let you know. And back to the issue of condos, I want to reiterate that I think it's very possible. It's just going to be thinking outside the box, more work for us, doing things differently than is done in other cities, but I think that we're capable of doing that. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Fred. Do we have anybody online wishing to comment tonight?
I see no online public comment.
All right. No online public comment. So at this point, that's going to move us to council and staff reports. And staff reports will be limited to city business. And we have first a update from City Engineer Netra Khatri on the local road safety plan.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, and members of the public and staff here. You must have heard local road safety plan. We've been working on this for maybe a while, I would say at least a little bit under 2 years. It's been a bit slower than what we expected, but we've been talking about this for a while, so I just wanted to give you an update, what we are doing, what we plan to do with this, and what the next steps are for our local road safety plan. So what is a local road safety plan? So federal government requires states to prepare a state highway safety plan, and that's been going for a long time. And that program has been very successful. So with that in mind, states said, well, that program is good, so maybe we should allocate some funding for local governments like counties or city to do a similar program. So with that, the local road safety plan came into picture. In 2018 and 19, CTC allocated approximately $18 million to the state to give out money to the state, to the local government and counties to prepare a local road safety plan. So local road safety plan is similar to state highway safety plan, which is a data-driven systematic approach to reduce the fatal injuries on the public roads. This document, local road safety plan, will be unique to the city of Arcata only. And if this plan is not in place, we will be not qualifying for funding like HSIP, which is Highway Safety Improvement Program, which has a bigger pot of money for safety improvements. Since this is a new program and local agencies and the counties have not worked on this, so state has provided a path how to get there. So this in front of you is a small path that will lead us to preparing a good local road safety plan. So you will see initially first step is to identify the stakeholders and then use the safety data, then choose the proven solutions and then implement the solutions. And before the implementation solution, there is a process where a governing body like a city council has to approve the plan. So we will be coming back for that approval, but that is also one of the steps in the process. So right now, looking at the map, we have finished the step 1, which is identifying the stakeholders, and I'll go through that. And we are analyzing the data that we have available. And right now, we are currently in 3rd phase, which is choose proven solutions for the improvements that we want to do on the city streets. And once that's done, we'll go to the next step. So safety stakeholders. So once we got the funding through Caltrans, we teamed up with RCAA and we worked with them to identify the stakeholders. And it took at least a 2 to 3 months process, but we were able to gather a good group of people who were in our stakeholders. So you'll see the list of people who were involved in the stakeholder, and they are still a part of the stakeholders. So it included our TSC, colleges, schools, transit, all different bodies, governing bodies, nonprofits were included in that stakeholders. So far we have met 3 times with stakeholders. The main goal of stakeholder group was to coming up with the goals for the local road safety plan, what is the mission, and what is the vision of that. So we already have that in place as of today. With the help of stakeholders and our TSC, we did a lot of survey, online survey. We used the street story to get a lot of information, and we also did the public events. There are some numbers, how many street story entries we got, and we looked into those, and based on those survey information, that's not back. I'll go back to that one. So based on that, all the survey information, what we found out, and this is like, we all know that, but still, it was, what are the highlights is, what we need to have bicycle or bike facilities. People are speeding on the local streets. We need to have improvements to the intersections, not all of them, but there are a few ones which I will discuss. We need some signage and lighting improvements at certain locations, and we need to improve our roundabout design. So there are a few comments on roundabout design, but I just want to emphasize on that because they are not saying roundabouts are bad. They're just saying we need to improve the design because some of the people believe, and also I believe, that most of the roundabouts are not bike and ped friendly. So those were old designs, but now the newer designs are much more bike and ped friendly. So this is just a slide that what we have done so far in public outreach and to get the input from the public. So these are the various days we have had our events, and we also had one public meeting at the D Street in November to get more information from the public. So the source of data that we are using is our Arcata Police Department reports that they have. Then state has their teams, we call them, it's called Transportation Injury Mapping System. All the information from street story. City of Engineering Department has some traffic study, we use that information. And also all the information and data that we receive from public workshop and outreach events. So based on that, all that data, what we have seen so far, and this is just a snapshot of that, and you can see the heat map is the red locations are those 3 intersections there are, they have most collisions in those intersections. So those 3 intersections have the most collisions. So the reason there are other intersections which have similar intersections, but I'm bringing this up to your attention because 11th and H, 11th and G, and Samoa and G, we have most collision there. But if you see the intersection 11th and H, it is a 3-way, it's a 1-way street with a 4-way stop. It has a stop, it has a better side visibility, but still there are collisions, and we're trying to figure out what is the next improvement that we could do there. In traffic circle, like in a traffic industry, I would say, yes, you start with nothing on the street, then you start with the yield sign, then you go to stop sign, then you go to roundabout, and then you think about signal. But this, what's that? Yeah, traffic all over. So these are the main intersections where we have a lot of collisions. So we will be looking into what improvements we can do there. And I have not listed, but there are other streets like K Street, 7th Street, 14th Street, which are on Foster Avenue, are the higher volume streets, and they also have some collisions on the street. They are not in an intersection, but on the streets, but they are not listed here.
What about that little, I'm sorry to interrupt, that little street that goes into Arcata Elementary that we've had a lot
Ross
of
Street,
feedback?
yes,
Yeah.
I will maybe.
Please, yeah, I would like to add that, thank you.
So what is the theory now on roundabouts? You know, I've heard that they're sort of an obsolete way to deal with traffic.
I would say roundabout is the best way to deal with for traffic, is way better than 4-way stop control and a signal, especially for small city like Arcata. Roundabouts are the best solution for traffic calming and reducing and circulation and flow, and not only for vehicles, but also for new roundabout design standards allow bicycles and pedestrians.
So when you're talking about 11th and G and 11th and H, are you thinking about little roundabouts like on I Street?
We are not thinking right now that's potential, but it's already a 4-way stop. I'm not sure if it will be working because based on the volume that we have on G and H Street, may not be the ideal solution. And we have not analyzed that, but that's just my first instinct. We are not recommending traffic circles there at this point, but we'll be looking at the options, how we can improve. So what are the emphasis areas? That definitely we need to have improved the intersection, pedestrian and bicycle safety. We have seen quite a bit of alcohol-related hit and runs and alcohol-related collisions on the city streets, and how we can reduce them. We don't have a solution right now, but we are working towards that. And also, our data collection system and reporting system is not perfect, so we need to improve on that too. So we will be improving that or providing some recommendation through our local road safety plan.
Just add that one of those was my parked car. R.I.P. Muddy Hackett.
Yeah, and we have, like, as you can see now, there's more than 50% of the collisions are on the fixed objects. Like, you know, people hit the parked cars, or they just, hit the bollards. So these are the potential countermeasures that we are looking into putting in different locations wherever we see there is an issue or problem or safety concern based on the data that we have. We will also look at the intersections and the locations that we like. Where are the locations like H and G based on the volume? Can we improve that now before we see other accidents in that area? So we'll be looking at that. So this is just some list that we are looking, and we will be proposing in our local road safety plan as a mitigation or as an improvement. And I'm not going to read all of that, but they are there. I like the education part more on this one. So ultimately what would happen is we have the data now, we are looking at the improvements. We will be creating a map like this which will show all the proposed improvements throughout the city. We will not go in very much detail, but we will have at least a master plan of throughout the city. And this was the master plan that was done in, I would say, late 2000. And we have done most of the improvements shown here are done, and some are still needs to be done. But we will be creating a similar or updating this to do improvements or show the improvements. And once we have that, this will be helpful to get the funding for through EdSIP or any other funding agency. That since we have the project, we have a local road safety plan in place. So now we can seek funding for that.
Could I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
So these are the projects that we have prioritized and
No, these are just an example right now. I'm just saying this is our old document that shows the potential traffic calming improvement that we should be doing in the city. So we'll be creating a similar document for local road safety plan. So what are the next steps for us? Once we have those improvements laid out and the map is done, and we have our draft local road safety plan, we will be meeting with the stakeholders. Once we get their input, we will be finishing our draft document hopefully by August, September, and we will be coming back to TSC and the City Council for approval of the document. And then once the document is complete, we have a plan in place. We will be applying for funding to implement those, and then we'll see what's working, what's not working. If something is not working, we have to review and, again, revise it every 5 years.
And everything that we do with the complete streets.
That's right. And complete streets, but yeah, definitely. So you ask questions. So you get emails, I get emails on some stuff, like K Street comes up, definitely. South I Street comes up, and the Ross Street comes up. I'll start with the Ross Street. For Ross Street, it's been coming to our TSC meeting for, I would say at least it came first time 18 to 2 years ago. And we made some improvements, signage improvements, and we got a petition from the owners to install a speed hump in that area. We did the traffic study, but based on our existing speed hump policy, we were not able to install a speed hump on the street. That doesn't mean that we're going to stop. Right now, there's a standing item. We are not able to get to that at TSC to modify or revise our current speed hump policy to modify to ensure that in our scaling factor, we are including school zones or some other areas so that we will be able to install in those locations where it's warranted to have a speed hump. So we are working towards that. That same applies for South I Street. We get the request for South I. We did the traffic study, traffic counts, but based on our existing speed hump policy, it does not meet the requirement, but we are looking into to modify our existing speed hump policy to see how we can work with that. And then on K Street, definitely there are some collision. People are speeding there. There has to be some solution for that. So currently, right now, I don't have a plan right now, but the only plan we have right now in place, which will be happening this summer or late summer, is the intersection of K and 8th. As a part of an 8th and 9th improvement project, we will be installing a push-button pedestrian crossing flashing signal there. So with that, that's my quick update, and definitely this item will be coming back to you hopefully before the end of the year to get your approval on that. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask the questions.
I was just thinking about, 11th and G and H, and I don't know if it would make a difference if we made sure the paint was always really fresh and bright and that you could see it, or that we had a little bit back from the crosswalk, and the crosswalks were bright, back that we had some kind of bumps that would let you know that you're moving towards a stop sign or you should slow down. I don't know if that's legal in the traffic world.
Well, not legal. I think we could do that. Striping is one of the options, and rumble strips came up as one of the options so the drivers know they are moving towards the crosswalk. So yes, those are options.
I know that people are interested in that as far as the Otter are concerned, having rumble strips so that people would know that they need to slow down or that they're at the crosswalk for them. But I'm just wondering if they would work in those two areas that. And also Samoa and G, I've seen accidents happen there in the past.
I've been in an accident.
You were in one?
Yeah, well, the turn in the yield is hard, and so people just turn when they're supposed to be yielding and video.
I only did that once, and then I understood how it worked. Is that
Well, definitely, initially when they installed the signal, again, that's on the Caltrans right away. When that initially signal was installed, it didn't have a solid green arrow. And this data that we are looking at, that's from 2015 till 2020. So that includes the time when the signal was not solid green, because they just, maybe 2 years ago, they modified that from solid green to solid arrow green.
And this might enrage people to even ask, but what is the feasibility of lowering the speed limit on K to like 20 miles an hour? Was it 25 right now? I'm reading this book, and it says that 20 miles an hour is like...
20 is a good number, definitely, for speeding. So what we are doing for K Street is we have a resolution in place that allows in the school zone area to reduce the speed limit to 15 miles per hour when the school children are present. And on K Street, there's a school. But when we passed that resolution, we did not have that school in that place. So we are working towards bringing that resolution in front of you to update that. So that will reduce that.
Sorry.
Oh, that's great. We like that.
So I just have another question. It's about Samoa Boulevard, and I notice how worn certain areas are getting. That's probably where the right tires go all the time. Is that a responsibility of Caltrans, or is it a responsibility of us to sort of smooth that out?
Caltrans. Caltrans will be doing that, and they have a project in plan. They contacted us last year, so they are right now just putting some coal mix, but they have a planned project. And they were supposed to do this summer, but I haven't received the most current schedule of that project.
I've just noticed that. There are other things on Samoa where there was supposed to be landscaping and it didn't work, it died, and so forth and so on. So, but as far as that portion is definitely wearing out. Thank you.
So to what she was talking about, LK Wood, that wasn't what I was gonna, but now that she's mentioned it, I come off of that exit right there, off of where, you know, where, Sunset, thank you. And I, at least twice a week, I almost get hit trying to edge out. And I'm just thinking, as Cal Poly expands, you almost need a stop sign. And I mean, I'm not a road expert, so I have no idea what you could do or if that would be something. But when I'm coming off that exit right there on Sunset, heading north, I can't turn to go over to where I need to go, which is over on the other side of Sunset, like over in the I Street area, EYE. And it's just like, I don't know how to get there, and it's.
You have three.
There's 3 lanes. You have to be in the far left lane to make a left turn.
Right.
They're working on that though, right?
Oh, good. Okay. Wonderful.
I recall, didn't we already approve some funding for a traffic study for that, right? Or
Well, yeah, not only traffic study, that we are looking into improving those intersections on both sides. Yes, we
All right.
are in the initial planning phase of that project.
Thank you. And then you had mentioned in your presentation that there was a Valley West advocate, and I guess I'm wondering, have you received a lot of emails or communication with, by fall, we're going to have 600 new residents, and we've already called Giantoli Arcata Speedway. And I'm just thinking about what that's going to look like with 600 new residents, and I don't know how many of these students are going to come with cars, but 400 of these new residents will be 400 plus, will be students. And then, of course, we have the almost 180, almost 200 new home key projects. That's a lot of vehicles that are going to be on the road, basically on Giantoli, Valley West, Valley East. I'm just wondering, have you heard from, did your community advocate from Valley West talk about that during this, the 3 groups that you had, sessions?
No, this item did not come up because we had our meetings late last year. So this all news came early this year, so no, it hasn't come up. But
New information.
Yes, this is new information.
Will we be taking?
So we will have one more meeting, so definitely we'll get some feedback, and we will look into that, definitely.
And then also, Dan, I believe his name was, the intern for the Community Development Department, did an incredible presentation, or at least I was really impressed. I learned a lot. Will we be utilizing some of those recommendations? I'm assuming we would. That's why we did this, right?
I have personally not seen that report. I missed that presentation because I had a conflict, but definitely I'll be looking into that report, or not I, but we will be looking into that report. And if there is something that we could incorporate in our local road safety plan, definitely we will.
Like, one of the things that I was quite impressed with was the illusion of taking, painting lines, and as you're driving down the road, the lines get closer and closer, which gives the illusion that the driver is going fast, which then all of a sudden makes them slow down. But they weren't really going faster and faster. It was just how the lines were painted. Paint is cheap. What a great way to trick people to slow down.
All right, that's a fun musing. Any other questions or comments, council, before we let our city engineer sit back and relax? All right, well, thank you. So do we have any other staff updates from our city manager? Okay, and so we'll just do council member updates if we want to. I've started with you a lot tonight. We'll start with Alex tonight and go down.
Well, whatever. Anyway, probably I don't have any updates. So at the next council meeting, I probably will have some about how we're doing with HTA and how that's all moving forward. And we'll have more about that. And besides that, that's it. And I have a lot of other kinds of questions, but I don't even know if I should bring them up now. But, it's just thoughts about different things. I'll save them.
Okay. So we had a really good, successful community cleanup on Sunday on 5/7. We had students participate for the first time, which was exciting. We're starting to engage the students that are living out at the Comfort Inn, so I'm looking forward to engaging with the rest of them when they come in the fall. We had a lot of new community members. Kuna had a participatory budget project with the Cal Poly Humboldt, and it was a big success. Got a lot of feedback on what they would like to see in the Valley West area. I attended today the Homeless Housing Working Group today. We got an update on the safe parking program. They're going to be continuing to September, and they're going to be applying for several grants and hoping to keep that program going. There's a couple other things, but I guess I don't want to jinx anything, so I'll wait. The Grove is getting ready to start phase 2, and that will be I believe 5 ADU units. And then there was an update on Danco, the West Village Home Key project, and I get to drive by it every day, and it looks wonderful and it's exciting. I can't wait to get a tour or sneak peek. Also, the Arcata House Partnership on Fridays, again, just to remind people, they have the food pantry, and it's for anyone. You do not have to be unhoused. You do not have to be low income. You just have to have a need. It's first come, first serve. And I hear that they served, I want to say it was 60 last Friday and 70, or maybe it was 80 this past Friday. So, lots of food is going out to folks that are in need, and so hopefully less people going hungry. I'm super excited about I'm going to a climate conference in Santa Rosa in about mid-June, so I'm real excited, and I'll be bringing back updates for that. And to you, Gregory Daggett, I have taken a local planning government class from Dr. Judith Mayer, not once but twice, so I did. Thank you.
I forgot to mention one thing. I went to the Cal Poly dedication for the Craftsman Mall, and that was very successful. And it's very exciting to think that they're going to be able to accommodate close to 1,000 students there. And they've made a lot of progress already on that property. It was like almost overnight. You saw it one day, you went back the next day, and the next day, and how fast things have actually happened there. So I think that'll be something wonderful to watch as it comes along. And we know that I think the first one won't be available until the fall of 2025. And then the next one will be available by, it's December probably of 2025. So we'll see a tremendous increase in availability of housing for our students. And the only thing I think about is, there we are. I know this is probably the better project than the project we could have had in the past with the village, but nevertheless, if the village has been built and hadn't been turned down by the council, we would have been able to accommodate 750 students right now. So that was very successful.
Okay. Thank you, Alex. And yes, I know our city manager was there too, and I saw a picture of you up on the podium. So thank you for that. I haven't had my big board meetings yet this month, so I don't have much to share. I will add, I took a planning class in college too. It was very interesting. It was actually a juxtaposition of like modern planning in Portland and historical planning in Portland, and it was very cool, but very Portland based, so maybe not too applicable to here. But yeah, the only thing I've been up to, I am now the chair of the RCEA Finance Committee, which is shocking for me because I don't usually love budgets, but I'm getting out of my comfort zone and learning a lot more. So as we move into our own budget season, and I know all of us are at our JPAs with budgets too, it is a crazy time. So patience with all of us, especially with numbers. And then the Oyster Fest kickoff party is happening June 3rd, and I will be celebrating my birthday there. So if you want to come out to the Oyster Fest kickoff party and celebrate with me, I know it'll be a great time. And that'll be at Wrangell Town Cider. I know Tanasa mentioned that earlier. And with that, I'll pass to Meredith here.
Well, we heard all about my HWMA meeting, so I won't talk about that anymore. I had the honor of going to the Humboldt Bay Trail South groundbreaking. It wasn't really a groundbreaking, but it was a really beautiful connection of the Arcata and Eureka multi-use trail along the Humboldt Bay shoreline. It's been in progress, work in progress for since forever, and it was just lovely to see so many people come together to really celebrate what can be a very beautiful thing. And our city manager made a lovely talk about how this whole trail was community driven, and I just thought that was wonderful, and to thank our community for continuing to be involved in things like that. We've got a lot of fun things coming up. We've got the Fairy Festival coming up. I believe that's the 2nd, 3rd, and the Big Fairy Festival is the 4th. We also have the Forest Moon Festival that's going on all over Humboldt County, which is going to be awesome. Crab season is starting, which again, I'm really, really excited. I get to throw out the first pitch on Sunday, June 4th, to recreate mine and Shoshana's beautiful fairy throw pitch. And gosh, that's it.
Okay. And with that, I would like to adjourn our meeting tonight in solidarity with Centro del Pueblo, and to recognize, man, I guess I didn't write a good enough statement of support, because we're still seeing this hate in our community, and it's not acceptable. So tonight I want to adjourn our meeting in solidarity with Centro del Pueblo and the Jardín, right down the street here from City Hall on the corner of F and 11th. And we support you, and we see you, and your community's here for you. So thank you, and good night, everybody.